If Head Drum had a podcast, it'd sound just like this. Hope everybody is having a good Wednesday night. We have our Congresswoman, Celeste Maloy, on, and we've asked her to come on to chat about some of the recent votes that everybody seems to be up in arms about. And
I'm seeing, and welcome everybody. It is a special edition Wednesday evening. And once again, I reach out to our Congresswoman and her staff, and within hours, not even hours, within 20 minutes, we have a confirmation for her to be on the show tonight. So thank you and welcome, Celeste, for starters.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. I'm getting to be a frequent flyer. I'm like that late night radio person who calls in every night.
I love it. Well, and you probably haven't had even a second, but I'm sure your staff has been kind of keeping up with what's been said on, from other campaigns. And the one thing that I hate, and I know a lot of people like me here in the county dislike, is a muddy campaign. You have been above board with this campaign. There's been a lot of accusations, and a lot of them are centered around your vote. Yeah. And they're centered around your predecessor, which neither here nor there. I want you on here as my Congresswoman to explain these votes and keep it above board like you have been. I certainly don't like it.
I'm happy to have a forum to talk about those votes. I've been calling as many delegates as I can while I have to also do my day job. And you're right, this is what everybody wants to talk about. And so it's nice to have this opportunity to talk to everybody at once. And because I've made hundreds of phone calls, I kind of already know what the questions are. So if it's all right with you, I'm just going to launch into it.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Okay. So the two votes everybody wants to talk about are the spending bill and FISA. So let's do them in that order. So spending bill, I released a video and I still had a lot of people asking me, yeah, but why? You said there were some good conservative wins in that vote, but it was still a lot of money. And I don't like spending money. So let me take a step further back than where I started my video and talk about, we were at a spending deadline, at a funding deadline. The government was about to run out of money. So I'd already voted against 2 continuing resolutions because I just don't like continuing resolutions, especially at this point in this Congress. We were still funding the government at the same levels and with the same funding priorities as when Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House. We needed to have our own spending bill, our own funding priorities. So,
and Celeste, that was also like COVID era spending.
Yeah. So when we're running out of funding, we've got 3 options as a Congress. We can pass a CR, we can pass a spending bill, or we can go into a shutdown. Those are the options we have. And I've talked to a lot of people who say, yeah, but why not go into a shutdown? The government's spending too much money. And if we shut it down, then they can't spend money. And the truth is, you can turn a shutdown into a win. We're not very good at it as Republicans. We get blamed for shutdowns and people get angry. But if we would stand pat as a conference and everybody stand shoulder to shoulder and say, we will not open the government back up until we get X, Y, and Z, then we can turn a shutdown into a win. This conference won't even stand pat and stand shoulder to shoulder on a rule vote to bring a bill to the floor. We fight each other on process, and standing together during a shutdown requires, what can I say on the air? Requires guts. It takes people who are willing to take a political beating, and we just haven't been willing to do that. But even if we did, when we shut the government down, this is the part that people don't always think through. Every government shutdown, we've come back. We've always opened the government back up. And people always say to me, well, nobody really gets hurt in a shutdown because we pay them back pay. And that's kind of the point. If we shut down the government, we reopen every time with a big omnibus spending bill. That's how we end government shutdowns. So going into a shutdown isn't the cost-saving solution that people think it is. I'm not scared of doing a shutdown if we can create a political climate where we can turn that into a win, but we're not in that political climate right now. So my options were vote for a continuing resolution that continues Nancy Pelosi's COVID era, liberal priority spending, go into a shutdown where we would get bruised and bloodied and everybody would panic and then would pass a big omnibus, or vote for a spending bill that did have actual cuts in it. I know they're not as big as people wanted, but they're cuts, and has really important conservative policy wins in it. And there are a lot of things to dislike about that bill. To be honest, I wasn't super excited that we were voting on that bill. But of the three options in front of me, it was clearly the most conservative, most fiscally conservative, the only one where we're not spending more money. So I voted yes on the spending bill. And I knew when I voted, people wouldn't be happy. So I immediately went out and started talking to people. 24 hours later, I was on a stage in St. George explaining that vote. And I made the video, and I think I came and talked to you guys. I went on every radio station that would let me on, because when I take votes that people aren't going to like, I try to make sure they at least know why I did it. And if they disagree, that's fair, but I want them to know what was at stake and how I arrived at my decision.
For me, Celeste, I think a lot of Americans are sick and tired of paying for Ukraine and all this money going to Ukraine. And you did say that when you were in your debate with Bruce Huff, you were done with Ukraine as well until it gets an audit. The public, what do you know that we don't know that would entice you to vote for another spending bill to Ukraine? Has there been an audit done?
So yes, there has been more reporting from Ukraine on how they spent the money, but also I voted against the Ukraine bill. So this last Saturday, we voted on foreign aid, and I voted for foreign aid to Israel. I voted for foreign aid to, Taiwan and the Indo-Pacific. I voted for the border bill that was part of it, but I voted against Ukraine. And I've taken some heat for that since then. I've had a lot of people calling me and saying, what are you thinking? Ukraine's important. And to be clear, I do think we need to support Ukraine. But I feel okay supporting them with lethal aid, sending them bullets and weapons, but I don't want to send them cash. And that bill was a lot of cash.
You've said that time and time again, that there was no accountability with cash.
Yep.
Was that bill separated?
Yeah. So in the House, we voted on 4 separate bills, but then they got combined into one bill to go over to the Senate because the Senate wouldn't vote on 4 separate bills.
See,
can you make us go live Facebook? Because a lot of people don't.
No, I cannot. I can't. They changed something and it wouldn't bump live. There's nothing I can do.
Okay.
So everyone, if you want to comment, you have to go to YouTube and comment, or you know what, go ahead and send me a Facebook message. I'll make sure before we cut her loose.
Yeah, you
at
can leave
5:30. We only have her till 5:30. So if you want to ask her a question, pop it in now.
Leave your comments on the post.
How do I put this gently? I think demographically, Ukraine is a lost cause. It's a losing fight. I don't think it's winnable. I'm not in the current status where we're having Ukraine fight it. All we're doing is wiping out a generation of young men in Ukraine. That's just my opinion. Of course, everyone knows I'm a IQ 15 moron, but
Ukraine decided to fight this fight. I mean, we didn't tell them to defend themselves against Russia.
They did. I'm wondering if Ukraine still feels that way today.
Yeah, to be fair, I have not been to Ukraine. A bunch of my colleagues were recently there, and they say that Ukraine does. But this is, now I'm speaking from the top of Mount Stupid because I wasn't actually there. But when a foreign adversary invades one of their neighbors, I do think it's important that we give them whatever support is appropriate. And I don't think cash is the right answer on this one, but I do think giving them lethal aid is the right support for us to give Ukraine. And I can't see the clock right now. I don't know how we are on time. Do you want to talk about FISA?
I do want to talk about FISA because you're getting so much flack for giving away Americans. Now, I know you said, and we posted your video here, and you said that actually you've caused your votes and the reform that you created was that now the FBI will actually be in trouble. There will actually be punishment and penalty. My question is, and what people are saying, well, that's great and good, but you got to catch them first.
Yep.
And what are we doing to try to catch them? And why are we just not ending FISA altogether? Because we think, we all know it's a violation of our 4th Amendment.
Okay, so that's that's a good segue because I think I usually start too far in on FISA and talking about the reforms. So let's take a step back and talk about FISA itself. So FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, authorizes our intel agencies to surveil foreigners outside the United States. Foreigners outside the United States don't have Fourth Amendment rights. And so you already have to have a warrant to surveil a U.S. citizen. I mean, that is the Fourth Amendment. We don't have to pass a bill for that. It exists. But foreigners outside the United States do not have Fourth Amendment rights. What's been happening, though, is that when these intel agencies have been surveilling foreigners outside the United States, they get incidental information on Americans. So
Right.
if they're surveilling, somebody in Taiwan who has connections with the Chinese Communist Party, that person may also be communicating with U.S. citizens. And they're getting, if they get the phone, they get all that information. And that information is sitting in a database. That's what the 702 database is. It's the things that have been incidentally collected. And there's a lot of information in there. Congress can't actually get a straight answer on how much information is in that database. But some of the things we know are like when these abuses were running rampant and there wasn't any oversight, people were doing things like running their Tinder dates through that database to see what they find. You don't run your Tinder date through a database you think only has information on foreign terrorists. I mean, unless I've never used Tinder, but
Well,
if you've got your settings, so that you're only finding people from the Middle East who hate Israelis, then maybe
Yeah.
there's a reason to run them
what
through
was
there.
that
But
congressman from California, Swalwell?
Eric Swalwell,
He
Yeah.
should have done that.
No, but
yeah, in
Celeste,
his case, that might have made sense. So a lot of the questions I get about FISA are not actually FISA related. So a lot of people who talk to me about FISA are mad about something that the FBI is doing that isn't something they're doing because of FISA.
let's talk about just what they did to Trump.
Yeah.
Does that directly involve FISA?
Yes, it did. Okay, so Carter Page, they were gathering information on Carter Page and using this FISA database for it. So in the 56 reforms that are in there, some of them are that you can't use a news article or opposition research as grounds to get a warrant. So if someone writes a news article and says you're a terrorist, they've got to be able to find some evidence to corroborate that to be able to go run you through this database. And don't forget, in the Carter Page case, they did have a warrant. They just lied to get it.
Yes.
And so that's why, for me, the punishments were so important, because if you have rules, but the FBI can break them, then you don't really have rules.
Right.
So you can't use opposition research or news to get a warrant. You also can't run anybody through that database to get evidence of a crime. You can only use that database when it relates to surveillance of foreigners outside the United States. And 90% of the people who used to have access to that database don't under these reforms. So only 10% of them still have access. And then when they're querying the database, there's a 100% audit of those queries. So you've got to say who you're querying, why you're querying them, and there's an electronic trail. And it's got to be linked to surveilling a foreigner outside of the United States. 100% audit by an outside entity, and then that audit gets reported to Congress. So that's 2 layers of oversight outside the Department of Justice. And then, as you mentioned, sorry, go ahead.
What's the outside entity?
I don't know yet, but that's what's required in the law.
With this new thing too, I mean, you say there's a lot that you really don't know about what's contained in that database. Why is that? You're Congress. Why is the FBI overstepping the duly elected representatives to hide? I mean, this is
Remember, their building
infuriating.
is the J. Edna Hoover building, so that says it all.
But what can you do to change that? Will this change that?
That's what these reforms are for, to change that. So an outside entity has to do an audit, then they've got to report to Congress. And it's not just to Congress, they've got to report to the Judiciary Committee. So the people who are on that committee are people who are very interested in holding the FBI accountable. And it's kind of the nature of that committee that it'll always be made up of people who are interested in holding the FBI accountable. In the video I sent you, I was talking to Kelly Armstrong from North Dakota. He used to be a defense attorney. He's very skeptical of somebody who has the authority to spy on Americans. That's something he's always going, or somebody like him, he's leaving Congress, but somebody like him will always be really skeptical, and they have oversight authority. So FISA is an important tool. It's an important tool we use to spy on foreigners, We know that there are people in the world right now who do not have our best interests at heart. We know that Russia and China and Iran are all planning things, and we've got to have the ability to watch what they're doing, but we can't let that important tool be weaponized against Americans. And that's what the FISA reforms are about, making sure that this tool is used the way it's intended to be used and not abused to spy on Americans. And I felt like the reforms we got in there address those concerns and make it so we can't have another crossfire hurricane, and we can't have a Carter Page situation. And if somebody tries, they're going to jail. They get jail time for that now. And I just have to believe that if you're an FBI agent who's getting overly zealous and wants to go after somebody like Carter Page, you're sitting there at your keyboard trying to decide whether to type in this query. In the back of your mind thinking, do I want to spend a decade in prison over this? You make a different calculation than before, where it's like, I'm the FBI, nobody knows what I'm doing, and nobody's going to come after me.
So this gets me to another point. Yes, it does good things when it's spying on foreigners, but this brings me back to the border. Yeah. A lot of these foreigners are coming over the border now, and a lot are unaccounted for. And if they're able to track people, say in Iran, who've now crossed the border, are they still able to track them now that they're on United States territory?
Nope.
How did you vote for protecting the border?
So I voted for the border bill on Saturday.
People are saying you didn't.
Yeah, no, I did. There's a lot of bad information out there about my votes, and my social media says how I voted on all of these, so you can go check that out. And also, it's pretty easy to check. It's a matter of public record. But I did vote for the border bill, and it would have passed if we had passed the rule related to it. But our own Republicans fought us on the rule and made it so that the rule didn't pass. So we had to vote on suspension. And on a suspension vote, you have to have a 2/3 majority for it to pass. So we had a majority, but it didn't reach 2/3.
What was the rule, Celeste?
The rule was just that's the ground rules for how a bill comes to the floor to be voted on. So I always vote on a rule and then vote on the bill. So we talk all the time about the 72-hour rule, and that means the time between the rule and when we vote on the bill. So it's just a procedural thing.
Any Utah Republicans that didn't have your back on this vote?
No. Well, which thing do you mean, on the rule?
On just this spending and not spending on Ukraine, the border bill, border bill. Why is every single person in Congress not voting to protect this border?
I think, well, I don't know. I shouldn't speak for other people. I think they felt like it was a gesture, kind of a symbolic vote. And to some extent it was, because it was a lot of the elements of HR 2, and we've already passed HR 2. And the truth is, we could pass a border, well, we clearly can't pass a border bill, but even if we passed a border bill and it was a wonderful border bill, it doesn't matter when we have a president who will not enforce it. He already has tools. It's not a funding issue. Throwing more money at the border won't fix it.
And it's already a lot.
I've been saying that forever. We don't need a new bill to cover what was done the administration before him, the administration before that, the Democrat administration before the previous one managed this. I've got a hard question now.
Okay.
A hard comment, and I want your thoughts on it.
All right.
For a long time, I felt like we are a weapons dealing military industrial complex and an intelligence agency with a nation attached. Am I wrong?
I think you are wrong, and here's why. Because we also have a constitution. So there are countries out there that start weapons dealing and they're influence peddling in the world, and what they're trying to do is grow their own power and their ability to control the rest of the world. We are still the shining city on a hill that Reagan talked about. We're the world superpower, and that means we have to do some things to keep peace in the world and to support stability in geopolitics. But what we don't do is go influence peddle to try to take over other countries. And that's why I think it's not fair to call us a military industrial complex with a nation attached. I think there are nations in the world that very much fit that description, but they aren't bound by constitutional limits. And that's why, every time I'm on your show, we talk about we talk about crazy stuff sometimes, but we always talk about the really boring stuff. We talk about separation of powers and limited government and federalism, and that's why those things are so important. Whatever the sexy issue is of the day that everybody's hair is on fire about, the answer is those fundamental things. The answer is, what's the role of the government here? What limitations does the Constitution have? What are the voters willing to put up with? Ultimately, we the people run this government. And when we lose sight of that, we make crazy decisions. In the law, we always say bad facts make bad law. And it's true in politics too. Bad facts make bad politics. Bad reactions make bad policy. And so we always have to keep going back to the high school government answers. Like, is this something that's even constitutional? Is this something our nation should be doing? Did it go through the right channel? Did we go through proper order in Congress? Is this something the states could do better? Is this something that belongs to the executive branch, or is it something that should be done in the legislative branch? That's what makes it so that we're not just a military industrial complex with a nation attached.
Well, I agree with you. Here's what I picture.
Okay.
Is we're sending money to Ukraine and Israel so they can turn around and buy weapons that we manufacture
And build
Yep.
more walls.
therefore putting money into our undoubtedly wealthiest 1%, which then floods the market, which then drives up our inflation, which is pinching all of the lesser folk right now. And that's just my picture. And I may be wrong because, again, IQ 43 moron, but that's what it feels.
I agree with you when we're sending out checks to everybody. What we're doing is just flooding the market and creating inflation. When we're buying actual goods, which is what's happening when we're sending weapons to countries, then you are supporting an economy. It's an economy that we don't always talk about, which is weapons and military technology. But a lot of that is
destruction is by its very nature an inflation economy.
Yeah, but
Okay.
what bothers me is
Because it's not an economy that circulates. It's an economy that goes pop and then it's done.
and sometimes we choose the wrong people. Sometimes in the history of our United States,
Well,
we have chosen the wrong people to lead, and we always end up having to build back better the places that we get involved with where our military has destroyed. And I think that all of that on the back of we're taking out loans to do this for other people. And right now, Ukraine is funding the wall they're building on the Russia border.
And
Israel is
actually-
putting up walls. And, in retrospect, for Americans, that's aggravating because you're loaning
Yep.
this money and we don't even have it to do that. And then when I see a CIA or FBI who's going around our actual Congress and Senate, I really, really am aggravated. I appreciate the reforms that you put in there because I think at the end of the day, and I hope you got a lot of people on your side for this, because the American people are done. I mean, if you were to walk into Congress tomorrow and get the majority on board to absolutely obliterate the CIA, I think the American people would applaud you and be happy. Most of us don't know what they do, but we do know they have a lot of influence in other countries that could probably save us some money just to get out. So the reform, there has to be some fear there when they're spending our money, when they're taking our liberties, and our Congress has let them for years and years and years.
And there has to be accountability and transparency. Anytime there are taxpayer dollars involved, there has to be accountability and transparency. We have a right to know how our taxpayer dollars are being spent. We need to spend fewer dollars. We all agree on that. But whatever dollars we're spending, we need to be able to account for them and know where they're going. And I do think you're right, Holly. People are just fed up. Inflation's still high, and the world's a dangerous place, and we're not living as well as we should be living on our paychecks. And there's just an undertone right now of we've had it. It's time to fix a lot of the things that we've slowly let break little by little over the last few decades. And, Jared, to your point, nobody wants to be in another forever war. And I think there's an important distinction to be made here of the places we just talked about. We're not sending troops, we're sending lethal aid. And that is an important distinction, that we're not sending our sons and daughters to die on foreign soil in these conflicts. But if we let them spin out of control, we're going to end up in a hot war. Then we're sending our own kids into these wars. And so there is a strategic advantage to having, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? But we've got to be really smart about it. We've got to be deliberate about it, and we've got to be transparent about it. What role we play in the world has to be something we've decided and not something we just sort of accidentally stumble around doing.
Where was that ounce of prevention when Victoria Nuland was over there in 2012 through 14? It seems like goading Vlad into doing exactly what he's done. That's what it feels like. Moron from the outside reading this.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's been a while since I was in high school, but there were a few times in high school I goaded morons into doing things they wanted to do anyway, and it usually ended up in an epic story, but not a wise decision by any of us.
And I agree. Let's look at this. I don't put the full blame on the United States because Russia's in a time bomb that it's in the early stages of full collapse, which this is what countries in full collapse do. It's acting exactly as history says it should.
It looks like you're winning this war.
Well, yes, but I feel like Victoria Nuland over there, I mean, I don't know. I would, at this point in time, I'd have to see evidence that the CIA wasn't involved with the color revolution over there. To prove, and I'm sorry, CIA. I know you guys are all patriots, but you have a track record.
So I don't get paid to promote books or anything, but have you read The Accidental Superpower by Peter Zeihan?
No.
Yes, I have, and I understand his argument, and I completely agree. We've withdrawn from being the secure of a capitalist economy.
Yeah,
but we've also withdrawn from that because we overreached in that time. After World War II, had we treated it like, say, we did prior to Korea, I think we could have secured that position forever. But then we start Vietnam.
Her talk.
We
don't have
no, you're fine. And I do have to leave in a couple minutes. I just want to point out that he says in that book, I mean, I think it was written in like 2014. I think it's a 10-year-old book, but he predicts that Russia is going to make a move in the 2020s because they're a civilization that's about to go into decline, and that is what civilizations that are in decline do. They get aggressive with their neighbors. So I was going to give you credit, Jared, for calling that one. That's awesome. You may be a low IQ Sasquatch, but you're making the same arguments as brainiacs.
Here's the thing that him and I discuss all the time is that it's easy to talk about how a person's going to vote on the Hill and how they're going to do this. And even, when you were in debates, I mean, you had all these dreams and visions, and then you get there.
Yeah.
Then you learn what you didn't know.
What is it like when they show you the rest of the Zapruder film?
My question is, it's got to be pretty stressful when your own party comes in and expects you to vote a certain way. I mean, you've probably got a lot more in front of you than you can ever tell us or that you can even share. But tell us how you're adapting and what you think.
So I will tell you this. I have never had the party try to pressure me to vote a certain way. So I've been there for 4 months. And it's been a brutal 4 months for everybody. Everybody's tired. We're in such a closely divided Congress. I guess it's technically not the slimmest majority in the history of the Congress because there was a little while in World War I where Congress was just smaller and they had a 1-vote majority. So technically their ratios are a little tighter, but it's tough. And what happens is you end up having to bring bills to the floor that nobody really likes. And you get to vote yes or no. I mean, it would be great if everyone in Congress had a pocket veto and we could be like, yes, I like this line, but I don't like that line. But what happens is you get down there, you've got your card, and you have to vote yes or no. And you have to make a decision, and then you spend weeks explaining that decision, and there's always something to criticize. Criticism is cheap, and we can all afford to have, a house full of it. And I recognize that. And so that's one of the reasons that I try to be so proactive about going out and talking about these votes is that we're taking kind of hellish votes right now.
Right.
And the American people are along for this ride.
The bills are this thick and you get one option to say yes or no on. I don't think people realize that you're not getting these little tiny 1-page bills where we can actually see exactly what you think about all these topics. It's getting thrown into huge bills.
And nobody wants to hear me complain, so I'm not going to do that. But I do just want to make sure people understand how this really works. The negotiation happens, and when you've got a big majority, then you get a lot of wins in those negotiations when you have a really closely divided Congress. And as conservatives, we like to fight with each other.
Right.
It's always going to be that way. We do not get in lockstep like the Democrats do. It's just in our nature. We like rogues, we like mavericks, we like people who don't get in line, which means we're going to be walking the plank and taking hellish votes anytime we're in the majority and have a really slim majority. But in a way, it's kind of beautiful. This is America, and we have the freedom to disagree, and we have the freedom to punch our own team in the face whenever we want. And we're not in a country where the party tells you that you have to do certain things. I have the freedom to make these choices and come back and talk to my constituents about them, and nobody's going to behead me for it. They might yell at me, they might throw me out of office, but it's don't despair yet, I guess is what I'm saying. My biggest fear is that the hyperbole will get to all of us and we'll just decide to burn the whole thing down. There's nothing better out there. There is not a better system than the one we've got. So we've got to get in, we've got to do the work, we've got to fix the problems with our system, because if we throw this one away, everything else has been tried. In the history of the world, we've tried it all. It's all failed. There's not a system that's better at protecting freedoms. We can get better at how we work our system, but there's not a system that's better at protecting freedoms. So let's take our freedom seriously. Let's get in and do the work to fix our own system. Because I think sometimes we get so frustrated that we talk in such extreme terms that we're telegraphing out there that we're ready to burn the whole thing down.
Yeah.
And that would be a tragedy. And also, I was supposed to leave 2 minutes ago, so now I'm
Yes.
late. I'm going to make that my closing
Yes.
remarks.
Have a good one.
Thank you. Transparency, you've kept your promise to that.
Oh, excellent. And I love that we're able to reach out to you, and I hope we keep that going, because one of us will hound you again
I will see
in a
you on
couple
Saturday.
Great. I'm happy to keep talking to people. That is one of the best parts of this job.
We need you to come back up here to Tooele next time you're in Utah and
She's going to be at convention Saturday.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to see you come up and do more than that. Reach out and have like an open for everyone to come and yell at you or shake your hand.
Happy to. I'm getting really good at standing in the front of a room and letting people yell at me. So we'll do it.
I'll bet you.
Plan a party.
Thank you very much, Celeste.
Be safe on your travels, and
Okay,
we'll see you Saturday.
so we're letting Celeste go
Thank
now.
you.
So I'm going to start talking. No, just kidding. Anyways, no, that's an interesting thought. Okay, everyone, we're not live on Facebook because Meta updated its stuff today. I got a warning. I tried doing the RMTP plugin. It didn't work.
Should I go
apparently
live on Facebook?
I shared this to our Facebook, and then from our Facebook, I shared this around. So everything we've got is coming through YouTube.
I just can't comment unless I log into my YouTube.
I know.
And I don't know what my YouTube login is.
Oh, shocker. But anyways, that's interesting, Celeste conversation.
What's interesting is how little people tuned in.
Okay, here's.
Maybe it's the time.
I think it's that we've got this oblong. I mean, we've got. Anyway, so here's Peter Zeihan's book. He is correct on all of it. After World War II, the Bretton Woods, Europe was destroyed. So we stepped in and kind of became the base for the world. But with that, we had this great big navy that we built up to defeat the Krauts. And so we used that navy to secure shipping lanes. And starting in about Bill Clinton, we quit building a small or a medium ship nimble navy and went to a large ship supercarrier navy. Supercarriers are great for taking out countries. They don't work well for securing shipping lanes because they're a power projection. They're like using a semi-trailer as police cars, right? So that's what we're looking at with Timothy Zion's book. I just think that we wasted that goodwill Vietnam on. And that's where we went awry. That's why we've lost that. We're unpopular around the world for that reason. And we keep getting more unpopular.
We're unpopular because we send in who should be rulers and then we take them out. And if they're not working well, I mean, isn't Gaddafi one of those people?
Gaddafi was one of our guys. We
got involved in Egypt where we probably shouldn't have there. Hell, Saddam Hussein. I mean, yes, when he was doing the gas stuff against Kuwait,
Noriega.
But to go after Saddam Hussein after 9/11
Saddam Hussein was
strange to me.
Saddam Hussein was our guy. We used him to overthrow his uncle and kind of reform the Ba'ath Party.
I don't understand why we consistently get involved in these other countries and then
It's
we
tough.
destroy them. And it's like George Soros's playbook. You know, you Venezuela. I mean, you take these thriving countries.
Venezuela.
And then you just destroy them.
Venezuela did most of the damage to themselves. Let's be clear about that. I mean, when he went around and expropriated everything and then put cronies in charge of stuff. I mean, everyone says that old Hugo Chavez was a great leader and everything else.
Had his moments when
he was great when he expropriated everything while it was still working. And then he put his brother-in-law in charge of said things, or his friends or his cronies in charge. And then they didn't allocate for maintenance and repair. So his refineries and wells, which they were a kind of a single product economy working with just oil and specifically crude oil, because their refineries failed, they didn't get the maintenance, so their production value lost. It kept dumping. And then he took all the money from that and he wanted to be real popular, so he threw bread and circuses at the people, you know, in a bunch of programs.
I don't even see this on here. So
go to live. Nope, that's not it. Well, I know it's on there because I'm sharing it unless it's froze, but maybe it did. Anyways, this is it right here. That's it right there. I'm listening to it.
That's so strange.
I know. It's Meta did an update. I promise everyone I will learn how to run their update. I tried putting it on RNTP. I tried doing a manual bump over. Apparently it didn't take. I don't know why. I wish I could fix that.
So let's talk about what's going on in the. Well, we've got convention coming up Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow night, we've invited state delegates to come out and just meet and greet with each other. We haven't invited candidates. It's not a place where candidates are coming. We do not want state delegates coming there to convince everybody on a certain candidate. What we want is shared knowledge. So for the delegates who maybe didn't get to sit down with Celeste or who didn't get to sit down with Colby Jenkins, they can go and ask questions to the delegates that did, or read the notes, or maybe there is a state school board candidate that somebody knows more about. So normally we don't do this in the county because I don't like groupthink. And at the end of the day, for convention to work, it has to represent the constituents, the precincts, not all the delegates get together and decide on one person. You know, we do like that we don't fall in lockstep, and we are free thinkers. And my neighborhood doesn't vote the same way as your neighborhood. And so that's why they voted for me to be a state delegate, and for you to be a state delegate is to represent your precinct, me, mine. So we wanted, some delegates wanted the opportunity to talk to others. Some wanted to find out about candidates and what they've learned. And we plan on just having a little thing at Stansbury Clubhouse tomorrow, starting at, 6, I think. I've got
she planned it
single night.
Anyway, so
new.
Holly is she's got we'll call this election drunk brain.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I'm running for election also.
Oh, and Holly's trying to become one of our
CD2 national delegates.
Yeah, national delegates. Our college, our what do you call
the
it?
Electoral College.
I'm Electoral College
also to
delegate.
Be a national voter. So
yeah, so and
nothing big, just
And for everyone wondering about voting for her, she is she's all in for the Big Don. So that's
Yes.
where we're at. I don't know. It's an interesting time.
And he said Don, D-O-N.
I want to talk about okay. So right now Donald Trump is in a trial in New York. It's interesting. I don't know much about it, but I don't know. I don't know what the precedent is. From the outside looking in, the reporting I see, seems like the judge is being awful partisan on it, and he's trying to do a punishment from the bench during the trial. But I don't know, because I don't know what the
You think he's going to get a fair trial? Is there anyone in this country who doesn't know who Donald Trump is and who doesn't already have a decision regarding how they feel about him?
In New York?
I don't think Donald Trump's getting a fair trial. And do you know that a senator just put a bill up that says, and imagine who we might be thinking about, that Secret Service protection will not be given to anyone that is charged or convicted of a felony in prison. If that's not saying, oh, we want him to die in prison, I don't know what. Yeah. Would they feel the same way if Hunter Biden went to prison?
I saw that.
Do you think?
It is wild.
What do you think? Because that could switch real fast, folks. What if it's Hunter Biden that ends up getting federal charges and seeing a day in prison? Would they not expect him to have Secret Service protection? Because I would expect that. He's the son of the president. I would want him to be protected.
I think we're in super interesting times. I don't know. I don't know what we're looking at, but yeah, it's an interesting thought. And I know you guys probably tune in because we have a cool congresswoman on and you don't want to listen to a moron wax poetic. But I feel like maybe it wouldn't be so hard on the federal government if the federal government wasn't involved in so many things that should be state issues, schools. And I mean, I can see the federal government regulating, say, closest thing to a state issue is freeways. And also, I think it would be easier if, and this is something I should float to Celeste, but we didn't have a lot of time, but I think we need to do away with direct taxation to the federal government. We need to do away with that. We should be taxed by the states, and then the government levies what they need from the states, and they can do it through tariffs, which will put obviously us at a disadvantage because the coastal states where you'll get most of the transportation coming in from foreign countries where tariffs collect the most. I mean, that is where the federal government used to make its difference. We climbed our way in, 180 years to the top country on earth with no taxation to the people, just tariffs. And then we reach the top, and now they tax the people pretty close to 50% of what you make.
And this is how societies collapse.
Yeah, pretty close to 50% of what you make. And we're on a slide down. What I'm worried about is that we keep getting involved in foreign stuff. I mean, BRICS right now, not concerned with BRICS at all.
Explain BRICS to people.
BRICS is a banking model to replace kind of the SWIFT system,
which is made up of Brazil,
Russia, India, China, South Africa. At one time, Australia flirted with it.
I think they talked about Saudi Arabia flirted with
other
it too.
countries, but BRICS is not a serious thing until we start getting involved in stuff that makes BRICS say, okay, America is no longer a trusted player on the world.
They don't want to use our currency. They're trying to create their own currency, which would be detrimental to United States citizens. If your dollar overnight becomes worthless, doesn't matter how many you have stuffed in the mattress. Look at Venezuela.
Yeah,
The currency is worthless.
that's what I'm worried about with this. Okay, we're sending money to Ukraine. We got to support Ukraine. That money that's going to Ukraine is actually going to buy bombs and guns, which is an economy of destruction. It's an economy that just goes
This
away.
is what you were trying to get
And
into.
then, so they
to
send that
explain
money
that.
to Lockheed Martin, those companies, those military industrial complex companies. Those companies take the money, flood it into the market. That automatically inflates us right there. So they just took 113 billion this last weekend and made it appear. 113 billion. Now, granted, that's not a lot when you look at 34 trillion.
Yeah, but
113
money they
billion
didn't
isn't a
have.
huge number, but you flood the barrel when you keep putting drops of water into it. So that inflates the market. Yes, that money disperses. Now, that's actually constitutionally the way our money's supposed to be made. It's not supposed to be made to the Federal Reserve. It's supposed to be granted out by the Congress. They flood the money into the market. It circulates and makes its way back. And then, humana. But we have Federal Reserve. So that means that, first of all, a middleman in the Federal Reserve, Congress says, okay, we're going to make this money. A middleman says, he peels off a lot. Then it gets made. And then the second middleman, the bank that's going to lend it out, they peel off a little more. Plus, they get the interest note on that. So they get to make interest forever from.
Again, no one's
honestly,
elected
we're not
making this decision.
Us alive are not going to pay a dime on this 113 million or billions. I apologize, billion that just got invented. None of us are going to pay a dime. Our grandkids might start paying on this. More than likely, our great grandkids are going to
34 trillion and climbing.
And that's what we know about too.
Every night, I think it's 40 billion. Every night we go to sleep, an additional 40 billion.
Remember when it was 40 billion when they first started tracking it under Obama?
Yeah.
I want you guys to think about that.
When you realize that Ronald Reagan is the first president to hit $1 trillion in debt, that from the first founding of our nation until 1980, under Ronald Reagan, our country wasn't in debt $1 trillion.
Eisenhower was the last person to pay it off.
Yeah, from Reagan till now, we're talking 40 years. We've gone up averaging almost $1 trillion a year. How did we run this country debt-free?
How did we survive?
This is the beginning of the end. Most societies collapse.
Yes.
When they're borrowing from themselves, when countries are putting themselves in wars, starting wars, finishing wars, helping in wars. When the very American people that the money is supposed to be funded on, the backs of the American people, when more than half of every dollar they make goes to the federal government, and yet their services drop, when crime is happening and they're getting less safe, when the FBI or the CIA is taking their freedoms in that way, they're getting less free. All of this is signs of a collapsed economy. Did you forget the R?
I'm glad you're there too.
Icky.
I'm using a wireless keyboard. Anyways, no, you're right. And man, I don't want to lay this all on Celeste. I know a lot of people are mad at her, a lot of people dislike her, but it's not all on her.
My question is, do they know what they're mad at? Do they know why? I mean, because I'm seeing a lot of rhetoric that talks about, is she even a real Republican? Is she ordained or selected, not elected? I'm hearing all of this, and I'm thinking, ask her.
Was W a real Republican? Because he ran us into the drink.
W put the very bill, the act that is what our Congress is dealing with now. And
that was written in the 90s, the Patriot Act, and they tried it. It didn't pass, so they sat on it.
Something big.
So that's how they passed that thick bill right after 9/11, because we were scared.
We were scared.
Someone had put sand in our panties, and we needed to feel safe again.
That's the thing, is safety it's theater now, you guys.
The good Dr. Ron Paul, he put forward a bill that was neglected, that we could not make a bill in response. I think it was for 4 months, something like that. Anyone out there who knows, correct me. But he tried putting a bill in that we could not make a bill. That means go to war, make a spending bill, anything for X amount of time after a disaster.
Okay, grief counselors tell you, after you suffer grief and something big in your life, whether it's a loss of a home, the loss of a loved one, a spouse, grief counselors, financial advisors tell you, do not make any big decisions at least for 6 months to a year.
So you're saying
Because
quit electing lawyers?
You're not thinking right. Because
We need to start electing grief
fear,
counselors.
grief and fear will have a high impact on how you what you choose
That's a
and
good
what
call.
you spend your money on. And that's why, you go to a widower or widow who's just lost their spouse, and some real estate agents will be right knocking on their door. You ready to sell? Get into something smaller. Let's
That's
get you out
shady.
of this. It can be shady. I know the intention is like, well, the averages women are, it's smart. She needs something smaller. He needs something smaller to care for, blah, blah, blah.
That's shady.
But the timing
It's shady.
is shady. It's true. And you shouldn't do it. You just shouldn't make big decisions after something like that, because you're not in your right headspace. And hence the
That's a
Patriot
good
Act.
point. That's why the good doctor, if you guys haven't watched his kind of farewell address, it is it's a reflection on his time that when I watch it, I get heavy in the heart.
You're talking about Ron Paul.
Yep, the good Dr. Ron Paul, personal hero of mine.
He was ahead of his time,
Mm-hmm.
or he was right on time. I don't know, but the American
He would have
people
been right on time, I
need
think.
to absolutely consider that what we're getting fed year after year after year is not always a good thing. Having lawyers, having people, and nothing against lawyers, nothing against, we need all kinds. And sometimes in law, you almost need a lawyer to read most laws.
Nothing
you do.
against lawyers.
It's just
When you
everybody
start that
hates a
sentence, you
lawyer
know it's
till they
going.
need one.
Look, there are lots
There's
of lawyers
never
that
a
I
truer
dig.
statement than that.
Yeah.
Nobody hates a lawyer when they need
Well, it's
one.
just like police.
Absolutely.
You it's just like police. When you need police,
That's when you pretty much.
you
It's
love
just
them.
like atheists in a foxhole. Right?
Atheists in a foxhole.
So
I suppose
guess-
I've been in foxholes, and technically, I guess I would be an atheist, but I've never been shot at in a foxhole. So then it doesn't
So
matter.
we still don't know
We still don't
if
know.
that carries true.
And I
Well-
hope I never have to find out.
This is a little early, but I wanted to let you know that those of you that are hang out with us, because we're going to have Ricky Hatch on. He's running for state auditor, and I can't think of another office in the state that I am just more excited about, because we had Tina Cannon on, and man,
It's the most important, boring job on the planet.
You have to be a huge nerd to do it, but you also
Is there a
have to have a
state
spine.
programmer?
Hold on, there has to be a spine on these people, because to be an auditor in the state, you got to be prepared to go after governors, county commissioners, city councils, the attorney general, all law enforcement. You have to be prepared. I mean, it's like Tina said, I can't take donations from people, because I could very well be
She
investigating
can take
them.
people donations. She can't take donations from organizations or groups or elected offices or any of that, which I don't think elected offices should be allowed to do donations. I really think
I'm not sure if it's a law or not. I know
think
that's her standard.
Citizens United, I know the Republicans loved it when it was first written in 96, I think it was. Republicans loved it at the time. But now Republicans hate it because they are fallen out of favor with corporations, because corporations have leaned into hiring all their college graduates, and the college graduates are Red Guards. But now Republicans dislike it. And, there was that warning when, which was that Nevada Senator Mormon, believed in aliens and such.
Harry.
Harry.
He was the speaker, or no,
he was the head of the Senate. Harry
Reid.
Harry Reid. Harry Reid pushed through that. I forget the name of the bill, but it was the. Oh my goodness, where you couldn't. What do you call it when they're in the middle of the discussion? You get up, give a super long speech for.
I know exactly what you're saying.
IQ of 42, folks. 41 now. Anyways,
it's called for.
Anyways, when he put the bill in to adjust
you
that,
can talk for 20 hours.
He was told by the Republicans, don't do this. It'll be used against you. And he's like, oh no. Well, it was used against them when they tried making IQ of 41 now 40.
This is exciting television,
I know,
folks.
But and everyone laughed.
One of you guys know what we're talking about.
But the Republicans,
it's not gerrymandering, it's you're grandstanding, but
anyways, but Republicans did the same thing with the Citizens United. And a lot of Democrats warned them. They said, one day this will be used against you. No one believed it. Here it is.
Well, look right now at this is happening right now to Democrats who are supporting Israel. It's all being used against them with those groups who think, that Palestine is actually the victim here. And so all these Democrats are getting booed by their own supporters.
Oh man,
because they're not taking the right side.
What do you think the Democrats are thinking right now going into we're hitting the middle of the election year and they're like, what do we do?
I don't know.
It's tough. And all that stuff going on in Colombia where that guy that ran the mic check, all that stuff they do. How do I put this? I've seen the video and you can't see a lot, but that guy is fabulous, and they're one step forward, and I'm watching that and I'm like, you guys have to be kidding me. This is I don't know. Only at a United States college can that happen right now. Yeah. That's all I got to say. It's crazy. It's crazy that
filibuster.
Thank you. It's
I would have died. I couldn't.
Outstanding. You sat and ground. I got to speak for 2 minutes straight. Did you see that?
It was killing me, Smalls.
So Joseph R. Biden said he's running to get white supremacy and anti-Semitism out of the U.S. And what he's done is he's shown that white supremacy really was nothing, and anti-Semitism is heavy in his voter base. And so that's what he showed. It's fantastic. I'm like, right now, if there's any, let's call them white dunce cap wearers, they're just sitting back and watching because they're not needed anymore. Because the Democrat Party, the college students,
the guy over at the Senate right
they're
now
taking care
in
of
New
it.
York. He had these protesters show up at his house.
Yeah,
I mean,
they were keeping professors out of Columbia. It's starting up at, I think, Duke, Columbia.
Can you imagine if it was any other thing than a Jewish group that they're after? What if it was Muslims or blacks?
Oh, God.
Can you imagine?
I told you this. I told you that we're in a different world now. The perceived melanin level in your skin is how virtuous and valuable you are. Why I say perceived is because the Palestinians and the Israelis pretty much have the same skin tone most of the time.
It's
But there is a perceived color difference. Howard Zinn really kicked off. I shouldn't blame him, but his book, The History of the U.S. or whatever it is, really kind of kicked off this idea of the noble savage and all that. Not that I'm calling them savages, but he kicked it off, and colleges ran with it in all their instruction.
You can call them savages. They're literally trying to stop kids their age, their peers, from getting out of their apartments, from going to a class, from teaching a class, from everything because of their faith. I mean, their faith. We're not even talking necessarily skin tone. But if this was any other class of people, the college would put an immediate stop if it was Black students. We're not letting Black students go to their classes. We are threatening Black students. And we think all of that would be stopped immediately. But because it's Jewish kids, they're treating this so differently. And watching the Democrats tiptoe around this,
I want to say this,
very interesting.
It's a melanin thing, because if say Swedish looking individuals were to do this, the media complex would come out in support of the Jewish people, because
there are a lot of white kids.
It's a melanin difference. No.
These colleges are loaded with white kids who are doing this.
But it's not the kids protesting, it's what they're protesting for. So if the college kids, let's say Israel and Finland got into a tiff, right? Mm-hmm. And the college kids came out in support of Israel, but the enemy was Finland because of that perceived melanin difference.
I don't know.
The college kids would come out and say they supported Israel in that. The media complex and on all that would be in support of the college kids.
But don't think so. I disagree. I don't think melanin has anything to do with it.
It's all about who has the better tan. Right now, we're in tan supremacy.
I think that if this was women, if this was gay women or gay men, if this was any other protected class of people.
Yes, but it's all about color nowadays.
I'm seeing, this is what I'm telling you. I am seeing these white kids. They're the ones gluing themselves to streets and blocking off roads.
Sure.
It's a lot of white kids who are fighting for Palestine.
Yeah, but they're fighting for Palestine so they're fighting for a brown person against a perceived white person.
No,
that you're looking at.
They know Israelis are brown.
You're looking at who's marching. What you got to look is beyond that. You're
saying Israelis
where the fight
brown?
Is. No, I said perceived. I didn't say. I told you just a second ago. They look the same, but there's a perception.
Yeah, but that's just for stupid people. Because
so what part of what I just said didn't
the map.
What part of it I just said? I just said it's a perception thing.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, let's just talk about if it was any other people, any other class of people, this would be a whole different deal. I mean, how about John Fetterman? Talk about watching somebody get the reset button.
The secret, I'm telling you, they removed the tumor. Communism's a tumor. Anyway.
He's been doing really well.
Oh, he's been a champion for the little man quite a few times.
I'm pleasantly
personally
surprised. And give credit where it's due. I don't think I want him running our country. I wouldn't even necessarily want him running my state, but
I don't know. Give him a few more weeks on this reset. He might be the best option.
I bet his own party's livid. Because they got him in there.
Unless he's Michigan, right? Is he Michigan?
PA.
No, Pennsylvania. Unless you're a blue collar worker in Pennsylvania and he's out voting to empower you what little bit he can.
What do you mean? Like what are you getting at there?
He's doing votes to try to empower the blue collar workers.
Outspoken on the border.
Yes, he is.
He's outspoken on Israel.
Which is a blue collar worker empowerment vote.
Sure. and his party's like, whoa, settle down. Like they're even being kind of nasty to
Dude,
him.
he might show up in the next couple weeks in like not sweats and
The next thing you'll have like a "Make America Great" hat on, and then
just not sweats, just like a,
then the world just goes.
He might like right now he's practicing the tie. Once he gets that down, that's all I have to say.
You know what I love? I love when, because you always see it on the other side. You will always see conservatives or Republicans go to DC and then they become more liberal. It's rare to see a liberal go to DC and turn more conservative. Very rare.
Let me ask you a query. So we're angry about everything the government's doing, but do you think we would be more okay with the foreign things that our Congress and Senate are doing if they backed away from things that should be in states' hands? Do you think we would be better with that?
I think anytime the state is making the decisions for its citizens, it's better. But I think America is this debt. Half this debt doesn't even belong to us per se. It hasn't been spent on us, if not more than half. And here we've got all this debt going to all these other countries.
Break it down even more.
And all these other countries and their studies and their rebuilding. And I'm sorry, but you don't go into a Muslim country and try to teach them about
transgenderism like they did in Pakistan.
Yeah, or even manners are about women's rights. Countries like that, they're thousands of years old, and they've always believed in the Muslim. You don't change someone's faith. And to me, that's as much as I believe in women's rights. And I think that gay rights should exist and well, that humans' life is valuable. You know, Palestine doesn't allow gay rights. Muslim countries aren't touting gay rights.
Maybe if the gay constituents march a few more times, Palestinians will see their value.
I'm afraid people are going to get hurt if they keep it up. And I can't believe they don't understand that. And I mean, the Al-Qaeda just off Afghanistan's website just removed the whole, there was a gay website, because you know how Afghanistan's like ours is US on search engines, and theirs is AF, which would be way cool. But let's say,
so it was gay.af.
Yeah, they just totally eliminated it. Al-Qaeda has taken over the internet of Afghanistan, as they said they would, and they're not permitting it. And you know, they don't believe in drinking or alcohol. So you can't go in and push your culture on a country, just like we don't want people coming here and not assimilating, you know. This is the American way. You can't drown your daughter in a mercy killing or a what do they call them when one of their children dishonor an honor killing.
Honor killing, yeah.
I mean, that's illegal here and it's frowned upon. But I just think that when we send in, I think a lot of the American people are looking at our seniors, we're looking at our veterans, we're looking at the homeless situation, the debt, the border, the crime, all of this that's happening at home, and watching our dollars go to pay for other countries to build their walls, other countries to study abortion and to actually do abortions on other women in other countries. I think it's disgusting. And yeah, I think it doesn't matter. I don't think it matters anymore. If they gave all the dollars and all the freedoms back to the states, and we had well-run states that were accountable for themselves and for their spending, the federal government's job would just be the military at that point.
I think the general government would lose its status. I do.
But what risks do we put ourselves in if we were to bring our national government down a peg, the federal government? What if we didn't have the CIA? What if the FBI was broken up into local municipalities and worked? Sure, they have a base in Quantico where they do all the forensics and all of that, but they actually worked within
Maybe
cities.
there wouldn't be kidnapping plots against mayor or against governors.
Or pipe bombs set out
Yeah.
on January 6th.
Underwear bombers.
See, folks,
Maybe.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what,
I
because
broke
we
her.
don't have we don't have the whole story.
Mhm.
And I don't even think, talking to Celeste, I don't think Congress has the whole story.
Mhm.
It's need to know basis.
I wonder, I want to know. So, you know how there was always that story that you get elected and then they take you into the smoky room and show you the rest as a Zapruder film? I don't think it's that anymore. I think it's now a vape mist filled room.
You just have to watch House of Cards, and I think you get an idea of what it is like up there.
You go in there and the FBI agent and the little purple light comes on his fruity
And it
flavored.
smells deliciously
douche
watermelon-y
flute.
all over the room. So with that being said, I think that we have to be very thoughtful before we accuse and before we throw mud on candidates. And I hope that we will reach out to candidates if we have questions. But you know what's it's got to be transparency all the way, folks.
Well,
People have to be prepared to explain their votes, and they have to be prepared to.
And Celeste has
answer
done
for
that.
'em.
Celeste has been, she's been open. She'll come on, and we're not the gentlest on her. We're not hard on her, obviously. I'm going to say it like this. I dig Celeste. I like chatting with her. I think she's a great lady, but I am not endorsing her, nor am I endorsing anyone. I really hope that we can keep this relationship with the office. I want the office to feel like it's a place that they can come and communicate with the citizens of Tooele County, the citizens of Utah, the citizens of the CD2, all that. I want the office to feel like, okay, these guys are reaching out. They're going to give me free reign to say whatever I feel like I want to say. They'll push back, but I'm never going to call them names. I'm never going to lie about them. I'm never going to disparage
You're
them.
never going to give them up. You're never going to let them down.
You've been rickrolled.
You almost rickrolled our audience, and I will not stand for that.
You'll sit for it. Anyways, I want to be honest and fair with them in all circumstances. Now, I'm a moron who's a bit of a conspiracy theorist, who's kind of a crazy person. I want them to understand that, but I also want them to understand I'm not going to disparage their name. If Celeste wins, I will still be completely honest when I talk to her and about her and everything else. And if she doesn't win, I still want to, I really like her. I want to maintain a friendly relationship with her, but I want to especially keep a relationship with the office.
Well, and we brought this to Kobe's attention, and I'm excited that he's also said that he would be forthright with us. And I really enjoyed our interview.
I just
with
want him
Kobe.
to be available.
And if you haven't seen it, and if you go to our history on Facebook or here on YouTube, you can watch the interview we did with Kobe Jenkins.
YouTube, Rumble, BizShoot.
He's running against Celeste. And we asked him then if he would be available for us. Would he be on the show? Would he be a regular on the show? He was absolutely on board with that. I think that's the thing. At the end of the day, these are really good people. And I will endorse once my voters tell me who to endorse.
Oh, that's true.
Because that is what I do.
That's your job.
Jared can wait
I'm a free man.
Until the general or whatever. But right now, I think it's a delegate's job. Get to know these two, reach out, study as much as you can. And please don't believe everything you read on Facebook. I find that when you actually go to the source, I had a great meeting at our convention with Colby Jenkins. And I know a lot of the stuff that's getting out there that looks real muddy isn't coming from him,
Yeah,
but his supporters, which you can never control what your supporters are going to say or how they're going to maybe play and hit below the belt. But I really respect that about him, is that he has tried to keep things copacetic and in line and about the issues.
he's really kind of a soft-spoken guy.
Yeah.
He's really a soft-spoken guy. I do like that. Although, I mean, if I could, elect like the Undertaker, libertarian out of, I believe, South Carolina, folks. But if I could, a guy who's 7 foot tall and ate all the steroids through the 80s and 90s and come out with
I don't understand what this has to do with
40-inch arms and scare
election.
people into being correct, I would. But that's not possible, because even he seems to be a rather mellow. I think he ran for governor in, was it Virginia or South Carolina? I can't remember.
Who are you talking about?
The Undertaker, the wrestler cat.
Jeez.
With the makeup, he's actually a politician.
Well, so is one of the other guys in Chicago or whatever. Jesse Ventura.
Oh, Jesse Ventura. He was the governor of was it
either way, you're
Wisconsin?
You're derailed.
No, I didn't derail. We were talking about how he's soft-spoken. I said, if I could elect a brute that'd scare everyone else into doing the right thing, I would. But I don't think you can.
You got to find one to run. And even then, they got to know what they're talking about. And a lot of people just don't.
Well, I don't know what I'm talking about. How am I supposed to know what they're talking about?
What we can do, what's going on in the news right now? Everybody's ready for convention. Some of you need to be there for the 8 a.m. vote for school board. That's horrendous. An 8 a.m. vote. State delegates of Tooele County. We will see you at the Salt Palace.
That's this upcoming Saturday, isn't it?
It is this Saturday.
Oh.
And I curse whoever makes a vote at 8 a.m. I mean,
Where's it at this year?
Salt Palace.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really hope that the county, those running for school board, have really let their delegates know they've got a credential. That means they got to get there like at 7. That is a long, long day for delegates. So I curse the people who set that timeline. I hope you all show up, though. This vote is very important, as they all are. But you go into these separate voting spaces for these races. And so I can't even tell you what room it's going to be in, but I can tell you that you'll know once you get there. So hopefully get there early, find parking. It's a
super
Saturday,
fun
so
talking about that.
Hopefully everybody gets there, but it's always a good time.
I'm awake now. Utah's got a new professional hockey team coming, I suppose. Tomorrow night at the Delta Center, they've got a public event there. You can go watch a hockey game for free. I think I read somewhere they're trying to figure out the name of it, like the Utah, the Mormon Crickets. That'd be a cool one.
No, it's got to have 2 Z's in it.
Crickets.
Well, don't we already have the Grizzlies?
Sure, but that's the Grizzlies is a farm league. This is NHL. This is
I thought
professional.
they were going for professional baseball.
Maybe it is, but then they thought about the Eagles. I didn't see any Z in that. Elk. There was a one with an elk.
Are you sure you're talking about a hockey team?
Yes,
or not a baseball team?
No, they're talking.
They just voted to spend Salt Lake County's money on building
a Bees new stadium.
New stadium.
Yes. And I'm sure that's going to benefit everyone there.
I hate that.
Not the owner of the team. Well,
I hate that.
For this hockey team, they're probably going to spend public money to make it so the Delta Center can host hockey rinks now. But anyways.
They already can. They do Disney on Ice there all the time.
The Delta Center?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Then maybe they can. Unless Disney on Ice brings its own amenities.
Well, no.
I don't know.
Mean, it's set up so that you can freeze the floor.
But they'll get a Zamboni and...
Oh my gosh.
That'll
that
be
doesn't
awesome.
Excite me at all.
But let's think about like names. I mean, we need to really crack down and get a good Utah name.
Don't care.
I mean, something Utah, reflecting Utah.
Prozac. It's one of the number one things in Utah.
Prozac.
I think we are. Utah's one of the most highly
The
prescribed.
Prozacs.
The Prozacs. Okay, that's insensitive to any of us on Prozac.
That's
but
insensitive.
There's a Z in it, and it was what we're known for. Green Jello is the other.
Oh, snap. Funeral potatoes with 2 Z's.
My mom makes great funeral potatoes.
Dude, everyone says that. We're in Utah. It's like a competition. You go to a
Doesn't
funeral
even have to be a funeral.
or you go to a wedding, and those Relief Society ladies, they all make, a pan of it. And they're just, there's a secret room in every church where they've got cameras. They watch people's faces and they do a secret judging on the back end. I know they do.
Like a fair and judge the best ones.
Yeah, except they can't do it out front because, you got to be magnanimous in your.
So we are going to have Jason Walton on. He's running for Senate. We're going to have him on after convention. And Friday, Gowd is joining us.
Yes, we got Gowd coming on Friday. He's going to talk about how he just kicked the governor's butt in court, I guess, or something like that. I don't know.
So hopefully he can fill us in on what was going on with the lawsuit with Sylvia, the candidate for governor, Fisk, and Gowd was part of that. And so I think that the ruling came out this week, and we really are interested in finding out the results of that.
And it may not be fair for me to say the governor's, but it's the governor's people.
It's his. I think, well, that's the big question. Was she saying it to represent the office of the governor, or was she saying it as an individual person?
That's a tough question.
But I would like to invite Amy Winder Newton to come on. I think that's her name's been named in this over and over. So I'd like to find out what her thoughts are.
Yes.
Of course, after convention, we'll probably go back to just doing our Friday show, because it's exhausting doing 2 shows a week. Would you say?
Oh, well, yeah. I don't know. It'd be nice if we had someone else who did all the producing and stuff. But with its IQ 41, 39, more on.
14 at the beginning of the show.
Is
now
it
you're
14?
in the 40s. So you guys with this, if
Well,
you
I
go
did
to our
just talk to
YouTube
my
channel
Congresswoman.
or Rumble and look up Political Head Trauma, please like and subscribe so you get notifications when our show's on.
Yes.
Also on Facebook, on Twitter, excuse me. But if you're tuning in right now,
and KMMU, check out KMMU. Go check them out. They made the
Maybe
news,
that's why.
obviously, with
we're on
the
KMMU's YouTube, not ours, right now.
you're on KMMU's?
I swear, when you just showed that, it said KMMU.
It could be.
Yeah. KMMU
right.
live stream. We're not even on our.
Well, the one I'm watching is ours, but it's labeled KMMU live stream. I've got that label on
That's
every.
so weird that we're not live on YouTube right now under our feed.
We
But
are.
go on Facebook and like and subscribe, and that way you get what?
And TikTok's out.
TikTok's out of what?
Yeah, no more TikTok. TikTok's going to be gone in 299 days.
So, have you seen any news regarding the racetrack? Because I saw a post
I
from
have
Chris
not.
Fields today that was quite.
Fill me in. What did he say? Were they making China sell
I
it?
love Chris,
Mm-hmm.
and he mentioned something about that he'll miss it. And
I did see that. He'll miss it, but
I haven't seen anything yet and heard anything. So I don't want to spread any rumors that are not true. I didn't know if you had heard something else.
let me type his name in.
Captain Crispy.
Okay. He said something about the track. I saw it the other day. Of course, I probably got him.
Of course,
He's
we
one of
probably
those. Here
shouldn't
it is.
discuss it until we actually have
He said,
actual proof. it's long. Let's
Don't
not.
talk to it. Don't do it. Okay. She teased us. She teased us and then
I
tossed
just
us
want to
out.
know if you saw any reports on the news
I
about
have
it.
not. Have you?
No, I haven't, and that's why I'm a little curious because I think that this should be a big story, a very big story.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think so too.
During session, our legislators voted to not allow any Chinese-owned company own land in the state of Utah, and most of the states are doing this now. And so I work for the Utah Motorsports campus, and I have got incredible coworkers there. And the owner of our company is Chinese American, and he's awesome. But I've heard nothing myself about that. And then one of our friends that we have in common who used to work with me at the track made a post today, but it sounds like it's a sure thing. But then when I've reached out to see if anyone else has made any mention of it, they haven't. So you're right. KUTV News is streaming live now from Delta Center with thousands who've turned out to the official NHL party.
I heard it was Thursday night, so it's Wednesday night they have it. Yeah, but we've got a NHL team now. I'd like to.
It says fan celebration.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
care. Is it just weird? I just don't care about getting another sports team. I feel like Utah's got so much more.
I'm okay with
on.
the sports team as long as the owner and the person who reaps the financial benefit of it covers the cost. See, look right there. Look right there. It's coming through on us.
That's so weird.
I know. It's all weird. But anyways, yeah, I'm okay with that. I don't like when that cost is foisted onto the general population.
The taxpayers.
Okay, everyone.
These billionaires should be able to buy their own sports teams, or if they can afford a sports team, why do the cities have to pay?
I concur.
For those buildings.
I believe that is, Snoop Dogg would say, for shizzle my nizzle.
Oh, a lady got fired on a television channel for even saying those words. Yep.
Wow.
Because of what they mean.
Should I fire myself now?
Probably. You should probably do it.
Let me just move the camera over to just you. All right, everyone, let's welcome Ricky. Well, hey, you're the thing that brings the eyes. I'm the thing that brings the giggles.
We are so excited.
Yeah, we got Ricky Hatch coming on. He's running for auditor of the great state of Utah. I know, everyone. It sounds super boring when I say auditor, but it's important. It is one of the most important positions in your state. He's the guy that makes sure that people. Have you heard of the governor?
The watchdog. And when I introduced the auditors at convention, I was like, nerds. And what's so funny, and please bring Ricky up.
Yeah, let's bring him on right now.
What's so funny is my kids got me their little stuff from convention, and they had me a box of nerds, and it has your name on it.
He was giving out nerds.
I didn't even see that candy before I made that funny nerd gesture. So we're on the same wavelength, Ricky.
Good. I'm glad someone's eating it because I don't want the dozens of boxes at my house. That's for sure.
Well, you'll have plenty to hand out at convention, I assume.
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay, so we know your job. We know after, lots of thought into what the county auditor here does and then what the state auditor on that level does. I mean, you are kind of asking for a job where you're going to be an island, where you and your office can either be hated or loved by any elected, any citizen, any business, any law enforcement officer. Like, you guys have to be the watchdogs for us to make sure that the federal or the state dollars and the activities at the state level are all on board, right?
Yeah, it's certainly not the most popular kid in school. The state auditor is. And that's our job. And there should be a natural tension between state auditor and just about everybody else. Doesn't mean we have to be mean, and it doesn't mean we can't like and work and collaborate with them. There are several areas in the state auditor's office where you really do need to collaborate with your local government officials, with the other state agencies. And that's crucial. To be an effective auditor, you have to have good relationships with these folks so that they know it's not personal. So that when I come in and I put on my referee cap and I am objective, I'm not going to cut you any favors. I'm not going to turn a blind eye if you're my best buddy, and I'm not going to come after you if you're a political enemy.
So, and I don't know if a lot of people know, but we're unincorporated where I live in Stansbury Park. We have a service agency, and then we have a greenbelt agency. And they both just voted to raise our taxes 104% in each.
Ouch.
And this is after they'd had an embezzlement that went on for close to 2 years, and it was $1 million. Now, that they don't get the sorry, I didn't know when it comes to mishandling of funds or maybe properly alerting the taxpayer of their truth in taxation stuff. They don't get I didn't know type of response, because they're literally taking money from us at gunpoint, so to speak. But now, me, the citizen, I've been able to call John's office and say, hey, will you please look into this? Because this is insane. We don't know what's going on. I feel like the board is not, cohesive. They're not getting along, or they're not on the same page. And yet we need extra eyes. And our state auditor has come in and take a look, or sent someone from his office. Can you explain, what's your experience? And have you ever had an experience with a state situation? Because we're talking tons of money.
Lead us out with what your current position is. You're the county clerk for Weber County, correct?
Yes, I'm the clerk and the county auditor. So
Okay.
Allison McCoy and Tracy Shaw mixed into one person.
In fact, we used to have it that way. And then we voted when we became a city to separate powers. And I absolutely love that we did.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I suspect that our county will do that within probably whenever I leave office there, they'll split that, because it's a lot. That's a broad swath of work to do.
It is. And with election integrity, and everybody wants election integrity, everyone wants that whole focus in the clerk's office to be about those safe and proper elections.
Yeah.
And honestly, what kind of auditor can audit that when they're in the same office? It just, to me, doesn't make sense to keep them combined, not this day and age.
Yeah, you're right. And the weird thing is I'm probably one of 3 people in the whole state of Utah that is an expert in auditing and an expert in elections. And I've been so shocked at how many times I've had to take off my elections hat and put on my CPA auditor hat and really dive into elections through the lens of a CPA, through the lens of an auditor. That's been really meaningful. And I've helped write legislation to help get that type of perception statewide and baked into state law. It's a unique kind of combination or confluence of different worlds.
If there was ever a question about elections in the state of Utah, would the auditor have anything to do with that? Because a lot of people don't like that the lieutenant governor's office handles elections when they are actually one of the seats that's getting elected. Would you, an auditor, ever go in and audit elections?
The state auditor has dabbled a teeny bit into the world of elections, but John has generally left that aside, left that to the lieutenant governor's office, attorney general, and particularly the office of the legislative auditor general. However, the state legislature can reassign or assign additional duties to the state auditor in relation to elections and auditing. They can do that through the legislative process. And if that's the case, I would be ready to step in. And I really think I'd be really the best qualified person in the state to do that, because I've been doing it for so long and I have both of those backgrounds.
That would honestly, even just to hand over the governor's election, I think would be ideal. Because even if it is all on the up and up, there's always going to be that question where an ancillary position is reliant on that election.
Oh, you're right. And there's a movement to get a Secretary of State in Utah, and a lot of people have asked me about that. And really, there's no perfect form. There's no perfect solution. You have the lieutenant governor that oversees elections in Utah. They don't process any ballots. That's all
Right.
done by the county clerks. But they do oversee. They do some auditing. They do a lot of training and
They make
standards.
decisions prior to the election. They
Mhm.
decide what equipment will be used,
And who can be on the
how
ballot.
everything's going to look. Yeah,
Yeah.
which I think that should be. Even if I was the lieutenant governor, I wouldn't want that position. I would want that pushed somewhere to
Yeah.
someone who is an outside body. I would honestly like to see, like, say, a woman voters organization, just a total outside of government body, run it to where it's nonpartisan and totally no one that
You have
no
to
one that
have
touches control.
accountability, though, and you have to have.
Yeah.
You
You
have
can
to
still
almost
have
have them
all that.
elected, or appointed, and then if they're appointed, the person who appoints them is going to still have that thought that, oh, they work for that person. Even like a
Yeah.
Secretary of State, would we vote for that person? And
Yeah,
then
that's
who
yeah.
runs their election? You know what I mean? It's always going to be, because if we
Yeah.
do it right and you're elected, you're always going to have people.
That's why I
argue.
like someone outside of government, someone outside that's nonpartisan that can run at least that election, and then let the lieutenant's governor run all the other elections. That's fine.
Right.
But
That's the counties running their elections.
The lieutenant governor has say about how those are ran, what they're done with, but let that one be decided by someone else.
And your conversation is exactly why this shows that this is such a complex decision, because Secretary of State sounds like a great idea, and it might be, but they're also elected. And then you have independent governing boards that are appointed, but they have allegiances to whoever appoints them. It's really kind of complex, and there's no silver bullet to this one. I do like that Lieutenant Governor Henderson did in this election. She has given up all decision-making authority over elections and given that to a former Lieutenant Governor, Gail McKechnie, who is now running that until after November, after the election is done. So that's a good concession.
Yeah.
I don't have the answer on what really is the best format, because each one has its pros and cons,
Right. Well, surprise.
Yeah. Well, you're definitely right. I just wasn't it the before Ross Perot shook it up. It was like a women's voters organization that ran the debates nationally.
Probably the League of Women Voters is my guess.
Something like that. They ran them, but after Ross Perot, the Republicans and Democrats said we can't let no more independents need to even have a voice in the United States. They pulled the national debates away from the woman's whatever that ran it, and now they run it. And they've controlled it because Ross Perot got in there and shook the foundation,
Yeah. Boy,
Which
yeah,
means-
he really did. That's an old name that I haven't thought of for a while.
Yeah. Talk about a guy that broke down into numbers. Whew.
Yeah.
I was too young to really matter then, but man, it's outstanding.
So tell us what's made you decide that you want to leave Weber County and go work up at the state?
I tell you, it was a little bit of madness. I absolutely love what I do right now. I love serving the people. I love serving at a local level. People have been asking me for years to run for state auditor. In fact, some people asked me to run against John Dougal, and I said, "Are you nuts?" First off, he's doing a fantastic job. Secondly, he's probably the best campaigner I know. I'm just not interested. And he and I have talked off and on over the years. I sit on his advisory council. I actually nominated him at the state convention back in 2012 when he first ran. So we've collaborated. I really like I love what he's done with the office. And as we've talked quite a bit over the past year, and he was trying to decide what his next move was. Was he going to retire, run for another office, or run for re-election? We talked about possible replacements, and he's not endorsing in this race, and that's the right thing to do. Many things that he said helped cement in my mind that I would be a good person to come in and continue the good work that he's done, and even be able to improve on that. And I have a little bit of the imposter syndrome. I think sometimes I think I'm not nearly as smart or as politically understanding and skilled as Mr. Dougal. But as I've looked at that and talked with several other people, what John showed me is how to serve at a local level, but to do it in a larger neighborhood like the state. And the thought of bringing the skills that I've acquired over the past 30 years in elections, but also in auditing in government and private, the thought of bringing that statewide instead of just the citizens of Weber County, that makes me excited. And that's when I decided back in December that that's what I was going to do. So that's why I'm running. I love serving, and I love anything I can do to help government be more efficient, to hold government more accountable. I think that's great.
I love John Dougal. I think that when you talk about a man like him, his character and his integrity is incredible, and his humility. And I see that in you. You've got that humility, like I'm out of my league, but then you add the fact that you have 30 years of experience in both of these things. Obviously, you're not out of your league, but I think it's what he's done, and especially working with our treasurer, with Marlo Oakes, and having those two actually have such a great line of communication and understanding. It's sad. It's sad that we're going to lose him, but I think that both of the candidates in this race, from our side at least, are incredible humans that are far smarter than I am. And I'm excited that it's, what are you doing?
It's a good choice.
I lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
My co-host here wants to play with the computer, and now
I am clicking on the comments while you.
I really just appreciate the fact that you put your hat in the ring. And Weber County, you guys in good shape there? Have you had anything exciting?
Yeah, always exciting up in Weber County. And it's funny because a lot of people have come up to me and said, I really don't want to vote for you for state auditor because we want to keep you here.
Oh, yes, the catch-22.
Oh, if our county clerk were to say, hey, I'm out of here, I'm running something else, I probably would cry real tears.
Yeah. And I love both your county clerk and your county auditor. And
no, they're amazing.
And you guys, Tooele has had some rough times over the past few years with finances, and you guys really have rebounded nicely, especially from the control standpoint within your government. I think Allison McCoy is just phenomenal, and really enjoy working with her.
She really is. And when we had the change of government, that's when I discovered, that John Dougal was knocking on the door of our county, and Allison has been absolutely amazing. She is so smart, and she's learning. A lot of people learn on this job to be auditors. As you don't just walk in with all this experience. You usually have to learn on the job, and it's different working a county versus a state even. So You probably will have a lot to learn at the state level, right?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, one of my biggest mantras that I say to myself is, I could be wrong. I think that is such a healthy thing to think, because so many times, especially in politics and government, you come and you think you have the answer when you only understand 5% of the situation. And so people say, what are you going to do when you get into office? I'll tell you, one of the first things and biggest things that I'll do is listen. I'm going to go listen and ask questions and be a sponge, and I'll talk to people in the office. I'll talk to people, former employees, people outside of the office, and just learn as much as I can. I've already started doing that, but I have a campaign I have to run. So that's I'm a little bit distracted there, but I think continuous improvement and self-improvement and recognizing that you don't have all the answers, no matter how smart you think you are or how big your position you think is. And we can always learn. And that's what I plan to do.
So I think just to explain to people exactly how big a deal it is. Now, let's say something's going on in our legislature, ladies and gentlemen, where they voted for funds that's supposed to go to education, for example, and that money instead went to build some sort of infrastructure or anything like that. Now, these are the legislators, the lawmakers, overseen by the governor of Utah. That's when an auditor comes in and is usually, you're in there throughout the processes, correct?
Yes, the state auditor can get involved during the legislative process as they're crafting bills. I've worked with John Dougal on a heavy number of bills related to that exact thing that you're talking about. What are the best, how is this structured best financially? So the auditor gets involved before, but also after. In fact, after is even more. And if somebody is spending taxpayer dollars, whether it's a local entity or whether it's state or even federal dollars that have come in, they're fair game for the state auditor. Because we're there to protect your pockets. We're there to really make sure that any dollars that are spent efficiently, they're spent legally, they're recorded properly, and that they align with the intent that they were established in the first place. Whatever the legislature decided they should be spent. We have to check that. And sometimes it's not easy, especially when people sometimes will try to hide transactions to get them where they want to go. And that's when the auditor has the tough job and the unliked job of really digging and asking the hard questions and pushing. That's what good auditors do.
Well, that's what I mean when I say watchdog, because ladies and gentlemen, what he's doing is following that process start to finish. And to a legislator, maybe it's just a couple $1 million towards education, but instead let's put it into roads, all good things, but that's not what the law said. And that's when the auditor has to come in and go, hey, I represent Utah, and you represent us, the taxpayer. Yeah. And you say, you are not in compliance with your own law. And so that's why, like, how many do you get endorsements? Do you seek endorsements from legislators, from people? Because I imagine one day you're their friend, but the next day you could very well be their enemy. You kind of have to be an island of yourself.
Absolutely. A lot of people have come to me with endorsements. And I'll be honest, yes, I have received endorsements probably from about 200 people across the state. Very few of them are people that I would actually audit. The state auditor doesn't audit the legislature. They audit the spending of funds by whoever executes the law that the legislature puts together. But, even if all of my funds came from somebody and all my endorsements came from people that I would audit, I have a track record as the county auditor of being objective, independent, and being a watchdog. And I'll give you an example. A good friend of mine who contributed to my campaign was an elected official in Weber County years ago, went outside of the procurement laws and policies. And so I had to audit. And I went in and told him, I said, look, you shouldn't have done this. We're going to have to expand this audit and dig deeper. And he wasn't pleased. He didn't want that. He asked me not to. And I said, look, I have to. I represent the people. I have to do this audit. But he knew it wasn't personal. And we did the audit, and it actually uncovered additional findings and made his life quite difficult. But the thing is, whether it's, the average donation to my campaign is like $250. If that were $250,000 or even $250 million, I have to look at myself in the mirror in the morning. I have to be able to sleep at night. And my inner moral compass is so fine-tuned. I feel bad if I step on an ant. It just bugs me a little bit. And the thought of using an audit as a political weapon or turning an eye because somebody gave me a few bucks, that is so distasteful to me. I can't even imagine. It just turns my stomach to think about. So, but what I do think these endorsements mean and represent is people that you trust, the Allison McCoys, the Sheriff Wimmers, of the world, they have in turn turned around and said, we endorse you. We trust him and we feel that he would do a good job. I doubt, not doubt, I am sure Allison, when she endorsed me, she had zero expectation that I would cut her a favor in any case. And I've told people that as they've either contributed or talked to me about it. I've said, look, this does not change our relationship. It doesn't change how you and I interact. And it's not going to soften any auditing that I might do if that comes up. So it's a hard thing because you want to stay completely independent, but you can do that and still get endorsements. I think, because I've shown it. I've shown how that happens.
Well, I mean, with every office that we've interviewed, you have to be able to trust the person you vote for at every level, and you're just going to have a job that's a lot under a microscope. I think endorsements are good. You just named two people that are very important people out here in our county, and to get their endorsement goes a long way with the citizens of our county. But
yeah.
They also understand that, just like if the sheriff is endorsing you, that if you're in a DUI in our county, he's not going to not have you get a DUI because he endorsed you, just like you're not going to not audit if you're supposed to. So that's just trust, and that's integrity. And you hope that your electeds have it.
Yes, and it really should go both ways. And that happened as well. Just a couple of weeks ago, I had a developer in my office who asked a question. He said, I want to talk to you about this particular development situation. And I've made a donation to your campaign. And I said, that's great. Let's stop right there. Thanks for the donation. Just know that has zero impact on how you and I interact. That has zero impact on how I treat you. You'll get the same professional treatment, whether or not you donated. And he stopped for a second. He said, thank you for sharing that. And he said, that's the exact same way I feel. Regardless of how you interact with me, I still want you to be our state auditor. And it was a mutual respect and a mutual independence. And that's really how it is. If anyone were to come and say, I'll endorse you if you, grant me this special favor or whatever, I would not accept that endorsement or contribution. Absolutely not, because I don't want any expectations. I've been really clear with that when I've talked to folks.
I wish more people in our government felt that way. So when you get there first day, what's the first thing you would tackle as Utah State Auditor?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would be a sponge and observe and learn their policies, learn their how they do their audit rotation, how they look at the risk throughout the state to determine where to go to audit. I would sit down with all of the leaders. One area that I think really could use some help in that office deals with the local governments. So I'll have to get a little bit nerdy here. There's a local government auditing division that has 3 people in it. I know the director of that division. He's a former county auditor, and so we've worked together for years. And he's a good guy, very smart, very capable, CPA, just a fantastic guy. He heads up that division, and their responsibility is to ensure consistency and compliance in reporting of these local entities. There are 1,800 of local entities throughout the state of Utah. Most of them don't even have a full-time employee. They're so small, let alone an accountant, but they still have to comply. And this portion of the office is mandated by statute to provide resources to help ensure that they get it right. I think they could do a better job with outreach. And I've talked to them about this. They have a local government roundtable once a year in January, and they invite everybody to participate. And there's about 30 of us on there, and it's great. It's very collaborative. It's very helpful. But and I told them this past January, I said, hey, rather than doing this once a year, we should be doing this once a month. And rather than 30 people, we should have 300. And I have some ideas on how we can do that, working with the league to help get the word and the training out up front. It's so they don't have to wait for an audit finding to fix the problem. It's like putting a fence at the top of the cliff instead of having an at the bottom.
Yeah. What about like a how-to website? Hey, so you're starting a new city, Stockton, Utah. Do you want to get your stuff in order? Here's hot links to videos we made on how to keep track of your books.
That's a great idea.
Population of 20.
You should come work in the state auditor's office.
No. Intelligent people over there, barely evolved ape away from government.
He'll just eat the nerds out of the bowl.
Dude, I will be in the corner eating with my hands and grunting and sniffing. Don't put me anywhere near government.
Well, and they do some of those trainings, which is great. They have some videos, they have some tutorials, which is fantastic. Another challenge that they have is, and I've heard this a lot on the campaign trail, as local government finance people come to me, they say, well, I'll be honest, I don't trust the state auditor's office. I don't feel comfortable going to them to ask a question because I'm afraid it'll turn into a news story or it'll turn into an audit when all I want is a little bit of guidance to make sure I'm doing it the right way. And I think we can fix that. And as I've talked with them, I talked about maybe we do a roadshow and we have, or several roadshows where we go through the state and we talk to them on their turf. We talk to them in their towns and see what they are dealing with, and build those relationships of trust so that they can call the state auditor's office and say, look, I think something might be wrong, but I'm just not sure, and not fear that we're gonna, go call KSL or call the news or anything like that. I really want to have that relationship of trust. Now, it doesn't mean there's not going to be tension. Oh, we'll always have tension, and that's how it should be. The auditor should provide that tension, and people should be concerned that an auditor might find something. But it doesn't mean we can't collaborate. And I love the concept of working with them up front, get it done right the first time, and that's better for everybody. And it's cheaper, it's more efficient.
Absolutely. And you should be a tool to those folks. Because again, you represent those folks too. If in fact something were to go down where they needed your assistance, I think that having a training or something, or having that relationship where new cities, for example, before they've made any mistakes at all, like Erta, who's just becomes a new city, or Lake Point, who just became a new city, it'd be nice. I think that Dougal's people have done this, but to have a little meet and greet where, okay, and here's the state auditor, and this is the expectations, this is your filing deadlines, this is what's expected in these deadlines, and just very open, and then this is your person to contact if in fact you have a question. So
yeah, and they have done a good job. I think we can do better. That's on day one. That's one area that I would focus on.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, so where do you see it going? Like, what do you see the office doing? Do you see any potential for growth? Do we have enough people in it to cover what's going on right now in the state now? Because we're growing. We've got a lot of IT companies. We've got a lot of, AI. There's so much that's going on that I'm wondering if we have a big enough auditor's office.
Does the state auditor get involved in private corporations, or is that only when the private corporation has contact with public funds?
It's really just governmental entities. If there's a private organization that receives taxpayer dollars, then the auditor can, then it's fair game. But generally, we're here to protect the citizens from their government and make sure that they're doing things right.
But that's it. Like these software companies, a lot of them are getting tax breaks.
Well, they're going to make cities swell, so that'll keep you busy. Things
like that. I'm just wondering, like, if the bigger it grows, how many people are in the auditor's office, and how many people? I mean, is it how big's the office?
There are 45 people in that office. And I know that they've tried to get some additional funding. I know John went and tried to get additional funding last year and wasn't able to get it. And certainly we don't need to balloon the office. but the legislature keeps handing assignments over to John because he does a good job. But with those assignments, you probably need to have some resources as well.
Yeah.
And so I'd have to look at what kind of value proposition he provided to the legislature. I think a good internal auditor or a good auditor really pays for themselves by finding the fraud and finding the waste. But that doesn't mean we should go out and hire 100 new auditors. We got to be smart about it.
Oh, well, the IRS did it, and they armed them.
That's right.
Well,
Yeah, and we could use technology better. I was an IT auditor when I first started my career. I did that for 7 years.
Hold on. So,
Like a forensics auditor?
you were like, Conan the Barbarian, big muscly, has a big sword. You're the
All right, settle down.
intelligent side of Conan the Barbarian, with the big pencil, or
Conan didn't have an intelligent side.
the opposite of the barbarian. You're the
nerd.
not
The
barbarian.
nerd.
Yeah. So when you went to college, did you have a friend who tricked a girl into being his girlfriend in like a bouncy house? Just wondering, just random questions.
Ugh, that's from the nerds, and
You know-
you're probably too well behaved to say it. I think you said that you had a pocket protector because they made a ton of sense, and you want to protect my pocket.
Yes.
Right.
You were
That's
an
right.
IT auditor. Is there like a secret auditor room where they have like a statue to the IT auditor?
Does that just stand for like hacker, college hacker?
Part of that was ethical hacking, and there kind of is a pecking order. You have CPAs, financial auditors. They're kind of the top-notch folks, and then somewhere way down is IT auditor. They're the ones that you usually don't let out of their house, or out of the back, out of the closet, because they're just so focused and nerdy.
They're rabid animals. They're
Yeah, but you set one
tear
of
the
those off.
city down put it on fire because they're
Put one of
crazy people.
those folks in a divorce, and my goodness, sometimes they can find money and
Yeah.
stuff in any type of lawsuit. If you've got the ability to hack, they called it ethical hacking. Is that right?
Yes, white hat hacking or ethical hacking. These are the guys you love to make fun of, but boy, when you need them, they are.
You need 'em.
They are just everything. And the weird thing is, and this is totally nerdy, I wanted to be an accountant when I was in high school.
Oh my!
I mean, who wants that? Sure, I did sports and stuff, but I wanted to be an accountant. That's really a weird. I get that. And then when I went to college and got my master's in accounting and professional auditing with an emphasis in IT auditing, and then I went and worked for a public accounting firm, one of the largest in the world, and absolutely loved the IT audit aspect of it because it's so much. It goes in deep, and it goes and it provides more comfort than just recalculating you just summarize all of the values on the page and it adds up, and yeah, that's good. But I actually went into the systems. I looked at the computer systems, at the physical security around them, the password management programs. How did they change the programs? What are the controls around that? What if there's a flood in the data center? All sorts of things. And I got to go audit JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and California Institute of Technology, and look at the huge Cray computers and make sure that they're secure. And
There's an investigative side that's almost like the law enforcement side.
You
of
didn't go
things.
on to the desert with Jack Parsons, did you? Just making.
I can't tell you that.
Oh.
Yeah. But there was one time when I was on a forensic audit, and it was a company down in Southern California, and we met in a hotel room before basically going in the front door unannounced, and they swept the room for bugs to make sure nobody was there. We were working in conjunction with the FBI, and then we drove up in unmarked cars and went through the front door. We found the person who was the suspect. Asked them to leave the room, confiscated their machines, brought them back to our own office, and then did forensic analysis on the machines and found that they had in fact altered the system to not total all of the numbers properly and take the difference and swipe it into their own personal account. So those nerdy IT auditors and forensic auditors, yeah, they're worth their weight in gold. And that's something that I would
movie Office Space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So what theme music did
And
you play in your head while
they
you
just used pennies
Yeah.
for every transaction, but it turned into millions.
half a penny? What music do you play in your head when you're cruising in an unmarked car? And I mean,
What do you mean? He's probably nervous.
oh,
Yeah.
Knock warrant, people die with those.
that'd be cool stuff. Dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
dun.
You think it's
You know?
Mission Impossible or
You have to.
yeah. I
Wow.
heard a good song by Linkin Park today that would have worked well with that. Lots of screaming. It was very
Yeah.
nice.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Speaking of screaming, how's the campaign trail? How's that been for you?
Speaking of
Oh,
You're probably exhausted. You've been everywhere.
yeah. I've been to every county. And we have such a beautiful state. I love the state and I love the people. And that really is invigorating. I'm actually doing quite well. My voice is a little tired, but it's going well. I had no idea that it was going to be like this. And I've run 3 campaigns at the county level by myself, but there's just no way I could do that at the state level. It's a whole ball game, and sometimes I feel like I'm understanding maybe 30% of what's really going on. But I've really loved it.
Partisan? Is yours the partisan race in Weber?
Yes.
So at least you've got the platform of the party down, and you understand like the party's convention system and all of that.
Oh, and I love the system. I'm a product, a story of the convention system. I was born and raised in Sandy, and then worked out of state after college, and then came back in 2002, and I moved up to Ogden, and that's when I decided to get involved in government. I was teaching at a private school. We focused on we taught Cleon Skousen curriculum, and we focused on civic engagement and principles of liberty. And I thought, I'm sure talking a lot about this, but I'm not really doing anything. And so I went and volunteered to be a planning commissioner for our little town in far west Utah. And then I went to caucus meeting, and it was me and four grandmas. And we got started, and one said, I nominate Ricky to be precinct chair. And the other one said, I second it. And the third one said, I move nomination cease. And then the fourth one said, let's call for a vote. And like that, I said, what is a precinct chair? I don't even know. And
then they did it for delegate too?
Yeah, they made me a county delegate, they made me a state delegate. And I thought, you know what? I better make sure that I still believe in the platform and the GOP platform. So I went and looked, I read the GOP platform, studied it. I read the Democratic platform and studied it. And frankly, it took the first sentence on each of them that convinced me or reaffirmed my decision to remain a Republican. The first sentence of the platform for GOP is, we affirm our belief in God and that our rights come from God. And the Democrats talked about something about economic equity or something, that had nothing to do with our founders.
They line it out. They're like, we want to be big tent and we want to accept everyone in, and we only want everyone to come in and everybody flowery and happy. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's how you manage a world.
Well, no, but every convention practically they always bring up the vote to actually keep God out of their platform. And I think when you look at that, there's such a vast difference. When God's in your platform, then you value life, you value the inalienable rights, that the government's not the one handing you your privilege to own a gun and those things. You're born with those rights. So
That's right.
You're right. Right from the very first sentence, it can say a whole lot about a party, because I don't believe in equity. It's not the same as equality. There's no way to guarantee it without someone losing.
Yep, that's right. And frankly, if you know where your rights come from, you understand the proper role of government, which is to protect those rights, to secure those blessings of liberty. And anytime government starts to go outside of those bounds, that's when we need to put our foot down and say, look, this, I can't do this as a private citizen. Why? I've given my authority to you, temporarily elected officials.
Yeah.
Why should you be able to do it if I can't?
Well, we're
it's crucial.
Sorts of justice now with what's happening at the DOJ, and we're watching, people break the laws all the time with the border, and we're seeing Trump basically just get all these charges brought up. How's he going to get a fair trial? We're watching in real time a clown world that is stopped being funny, and now it's just turned into terrifying. Because clowns are scary anyway, but
Yeah, that's right.
But here you're running for a seat that could hopefully keep Utah on somewhat of a sane path. And John has done a great job, and I really feel like both the candidates in this race are highly qualified and highly strong individuals. I'm talking about you in third person, but this seat, this office, it has to be held by someone who is strong, who is willing to stand alone against even our own government, because it's especially our own government, because Utah is not free from having the issues that are happening outside our borders. It's one vote away. It's a few policies away from us being in the same boat where we just look back and go, wait a minute, what did they do wrong?
Well, not just that. The next census, California is going to get a couple extra congressmen, Congress people. I'm sorry, California, Congressers or zits, whatever. And New York is probably going to get a few, because they're swelling their numbers.
So will Texas, so will Arizona.
Texas, we'll see how that one goes. I know it's always threatened it'll be blue, whatever. I don't know. Maybe.
Then
again,
about like the auditor's role. I mean, you've got to be protecting the people. You've got to be protecting the people from the government. And we are a really great state. And we've got an amazing state. And the best thing about this state is the people, in my opinion, the communities. So
and the corn.
To have an auditor that can actually stand up for me and in my little township when I feel like I'm getting railroaded by this agency that doesn't really understand, or this happened and they don't realize that your policy is why this happened. You need to fix this. And now you turn around and charge us 104% in each department. So it's 208% more in taxes I'm paying. But we need to have a reliable person in this seat that can be available to the people and reachable and accountable.
Yeah, and that is absolutely true. And I think John's done a great job. I didn't mention this earlier when talking about the endorsements and contributions. John Dougal, I think, is the epitome of objectivity, independence, and force. He raised $80,000 when he ran for state auditor. And frankly, he needed to, because he had an opponent that was entrenched and was well funded. But John, what I love about it is he maintained his independence, and I totally respect that. And that's exactly what we need. We need someone at that state auditor's office who isn't afraid to be the bulldog, who has the relationships with others so that they know it's not personal, and who has the smarts and the experience to go in and look at organizations and be able to see not just the red flags when they look at their finances, but the pink handkerchiefs. They need to be able to see the small signs so that they can dig and keep going.
And potentially you could actually, those little handkerchiefs could actually save taxpayers by saying, hey, look, if you've got a potential here to have this and this happen, you might want to get your policies in check, or we'll be visiting you in a year because you've had embezzlement or something else. Again, looking out for the agency that you're helping or you're auditing, but you're helping them, but you're helping the taxpayer. And that relationship has to be built, and it has to be built on trust. And so you've got to be the squeakiest, cleanest candidate in this whole, of all the races. Our auditors have to be the ones that are have the most integrity, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right on. That's crucial. And was it Mark Twain that said, as soon as people talk about how honest they are, I start counting the silverware. And, you know, I love
he had the best sayings.
And humility
Yeah.
goes a long way. Just humility does go a long way. And I think that Frugal Dougal, as he's known, yeah, he was so supportive of our county, and he's been so supportive of, you know, party chairs, but just regular citizens have been able to call him up, and he listens. And Judge Judy says you have two eyes or you have two ears and one mouth for a reason. You're meant to listen before you speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're quoting Mark Twain. I'm quoting Judge Judy. I think this sounds really great.
Who do I get a quote now? Arlie Ermy. Anyways, let's take a second and talk about your website. I'm going to throw it up here on the old screen. And so to go to your website, it's www.rickyhatch.com.
That's it. Very original. I know.
Yeah, you're laying it out, and you've got quite a few endorsements in here. Well, that's you, isn't it? And then,
that's me. I endorse myself.
Okay, so yeah, you got a few endorsements. So if anyone has any questions, they can go there and check it out. Go into the About Ricky, humana, talk about who you are. But then you get to the important stuff. You got the contact information where you can dial in there and contact, and then you've got obviously the donate button.
Yep.
So if you want to support Ricky, you can go in there and donate.
Yeah.
But
and
if you're undecided and we haven't formulated the questions that you want to hear from him, dive in there. He's got his phone number and his email address.
I want people to understand, though, how seriously important this job is. And this is a job interview, of course. Any one of you delegates that are meeting candidates, you are doing a job interview. But this job is the job that is going to be the overwatch of the people you're electing and the departments that are being created. And we talk all the time about unelected bureaucrats and the power they hold over all these different agencies, both in the state of Utah and in the federal government. And we need to have watchdogs that are going to dive into these agencies and figure out what's going on when there's a question. And if you find that you believe in a candidate, and again, we say this all the time, and maybe you can't afford to donate, but get in touch with candidate, wear his t-shirt at convention, or
donate time,
some phone calls, volunteer. Did you get signatures, Ricky, or are you convention only?
No, I've never gathered signatures. I think the delegates really are best poised to vet the candidates. That's how I got elected in Weber County, and I think it's events like this and interviews. I've got a virtual town hall at 8:00 tonight. That's really where the deep vetting goes, and you just can't get that in a direct primary.
Where do people go if they want to join in on this virtual town hall?
If they go to my website and click on the events tab, it's there. It's just a Zoom meeting.
Awesome.
Another thing on my website that I didn't talk about, but it's on the About Ricky page. There's a list of books.
I saw that when I was scrolling through it earlier.
And I love reading. I've read probably about, 400 books in the past 30 years. So I'm not a super heavy reader, but I love reading. And these books have influenced me. There are a couple books by Cleon Skousen, who I studied personally under when I ran my private school.
You got the Fourth Turning on there. Oh boy.
Yeah, that's
Fourth Turning, which is all the big news right now. You got, of course, Bastiat's The Law, very important book.
Yeah, and there's
5,000 Year Leap.
Good to Great is a management book on leadership. It's all about leadership, which was really well researched. I loved Up From Slavery by Booker T. Washington. That talked about how to bring a civilization out of slavery or out of bondage and really help them thrive. It was a fantastic book. So I
if only we would have followed that as a nation.
That's why I love it. I was like, what are we in bondage to today? And I really thought we're in bondage to leisure. We love our leisure time, and we don't use it to better our neighbor. Well, not always. We focus on more entertainment than we do on civic service. And I think, we don't have to just be civil servants and just contribute. We can have fun too. But boy, if as a society, each one of us spent an extra 2 hours a week focusing, learning about governance, learning about our Constitution, or serving in a political or a governmental kind of capacity, God, that would just transform our nation.
Imagine if everyone spent an hour a week in outreach just focused on how do I help our homeless problem or our drug addiction problem. Imagine the shakeup we could have, because they always talk about, why was it better, in the 40s and 50s? And maybe it wasn't, but everyone had kind of they felt a civil responsibility to their neighbor. They carried this responsibility at the community. You got shunned if you were a dirtbag. And now if you're a dirtbag, we give you a TV special on MTV and you can go and do your stuff.
That's right. And when we have problems, we run to the government for help, when really we should be asking our neighbors and our churches and civic or nonprofits or charitable organizations.
Yeah, we need to bring back Rotary clubs.
Yep, exactly.
But FDR killed those.
Thing that I was having a conversation with, I think, my husband the other day is that the American people, we have got all the education we could possibly ever imagine, all the information we could possibly imagine at our fingertips. And yet we get caught in these vortexes of never ending videos that are 30 seconds long and these short quips. And if people it's like, we don't know, Americans don't know what pain is. We really don't. Even the poorest among us are usually watching the news from a flat screen.
Well, obesity is our number one killer.
A cell phone. And so we don't really know yet what pain is. And we also don't realize that politics is in every facet of our lives. Every facet, it kind of comes down to politics. It can be in almost everything. So you're right. By getting to know what civics is, just being a voter, just educating yourselves on the issues, just taking that time rather than scrolling through TikTok or whatever, take the time to get to know each member of your representatives that are in your county and then your state and how they're voting. What do they know that you want them to know about the issues affecting you? All these things would be so huge to better representation if more people didn't just watch a snippet of what someone candidate said or an argument what candidates say.
Hold on, I thought it was about what Taylor Swift thought.
Get to know how the sheriff affects your life, how the county auditor, how the clerk, what facets of your life do all these jobs work, and then volunteer on election night to work in in-person voting if that's what you want. Volunteer in the clerk's office. There's so many things that you can do because the government at the end of the day is in every facet. Politics is in every facet. And people should be civically, they should give their time civically. Even if it's something like knocking on doors to let people know where voting stations are going to be.
Yep.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question? So you've read The Fourth Turning. I've read The Fourth Turning. Love the book. It's interesting. In the end, they kind of give that prescription how to avoid catastrophe. The steps that the different generations need to do. What are your thoughts on how we have done? Because this book came out in the 90s. So we've been able to digest this for a couple minutes. What are your thoughts? Do you think they've given a prescription that the boomers need to relinquish some power and relinquish some financial grip that they've had on the nation to avoid catastrophe. Gen Xers, they were kind of like, I don't know, you guys are savages, just, don't poop on the carpet. And then, the generations after that, Alpha and all those guys. But how do you think, like, if you look around your community and the nation and the state, do you think that we have we molded that, or do you think that maybe we're a little behind?
I think we're behind. And it's been probably 20 years since I've read that book. And there's a new book out. Well, I don't know how new it is, but it's called The Fourth Turning is Here.
Yeah.
I haven't read that.
I haven't read it yet either. Both guys didn't write it because the one guy's dead. But the other guy's still alive. He wrote it with someone else.
And I'm worried. I think we're behind. I think unless we make some structural changes to the form of government and our appetite for, I'll call it socialism. That's too broad of a term, but our appetite for government making our lives better, when really they just need to be protecting our rights.
They need to get out of their way.
It's that insatiable appetite for more help and for more governmental involvement. We've got to stop. We have to stop that reliance.
It's the nanny state. And once you give, it's 10 times harder to take it away. Because, you could say, look, we're going to cut Social Security in this many years. And if we don't do it a certain way that's smart and we try to cover bases, someone's going to lose out. But if we don't do anything now, it's just going to be gone. Yep. And then we have no preparation. Everybody's like, oh no, what just happened? But people panic at the mere thought. And then they're not just panicking, but they become indignant because people like me and you, we've paid into it our whole lives. But is it waiting for us at the end? And we pay, are you going to pay me back? Are you going to put this in? People become indignant. And so, yes, and it was taken at gunpoint again. You didn't get a choice. And it's got borrowed from by our own government. So it's our own government's fault that it's dying. Had they never touched it, maybe it could have sustained itself, but it became a Ponzi scheme anyway.
Well, I wonder.
But what I'm getting, my final point is, once you give that to anything to someone, taking it away is near impossible.
Yeah. I wonder if, and because they were writing about this, and every year the general government absorbs more responsibilities, and they're not as contactable as your local government is. And I wonder if that's part of the problem. And both those guys were what you would call kind of big government minded guys. You could tell, especially in that final announcement, but I don't fault them for that. Another thing I would suggest that I found interesting, maybe you want to add to your list, is Jonathan Haidt's The Righteous Mind, because that gives you an insight into how both parties and libertarians, the weird middle people, think, what they think about, what draws them in, and that is an excellent read, and it's something that after you read it, you view your opponents differently. You understand them and view them differently. It gives you a sense of compassion, if you will.
I'm totally adding that to my list. I haven't heard of that book. So thank you for that. The Righteous Mind.
Yeah.
Well, we've got only a minute or so left with you. So tell us
blow us out.
Tell us what we want to know about you that we
What's
don't
your
know
hobbies?
that we want to know yet.
Are you in a band? Play guitar? What do you got?
Where's your pocket protector right now?
Oh, it's coming tomorrow.
He's got a glass case on the wall in case of emergency.
No, in my head you do. You have them. You have one in the wall, and your first pocket protector. Then you have one in every drawer of the house, and then your wife has to buy you shirts with pockets. Otherwise, you have to carry it in your pocket.
Yeah, I'm lost. They need pant pocket protectors. I want to do that.
Hey, Dougal had his Frugal Dougal. You should make marketing team your pocket protector. I'm not even kidding.
That's right. Well, and really, the pocket protector is really, to close, that's the function of the state auditor's office. And I honestly think at this time and in this place, given our situation, we need a pocket protector. We need a nerdy auditing CPA who's been doing this for decades, who has the objectivity, the CPA code of ethics, the independence necessary to make the hard decisions, but the relationships to help make sure that we're not just coming down as a hammer. We're helping these other entities and those that are doing things maybe incorrectly or inefficiently, we're helping them do it better, because that's, in the end, it's those relationships that make government more efficient and more effective. So it's really, you need a pocket protector, you need a nerd, you need an auditor who has been doing it for 30 years. That's my spiel.
Do you have to? Did you have to step down as clerk auditor to run for this office, or are you able to run and still serve?
I can run and still serve, and it's been killing me this week as I ramped up my campaigning to not be able to play. It is play to be able to focus so much on my job, because I put in 50, 60-hour weeks every week, and I love them. Love serving. So that's a long way of saying I don't have to give that up, because that election is in 2 years. And if I decide to run again, if I lose this race, and hallelujah, I get to keep doing what I love, which is serving the people of Weber County. And
you kind of got the best of both worlds, huh?
Yeah, it really is.
Other than for your poor county chair who would have to plan a special election because somebody bowed out early. That doesn't happen so easily, sir.
Yeah, you are totally right. And it's a big pain. And people have already started contacting me about, who are you going to have replace you? Are you interested in me? And I said, look, that is way far off still. Let's focus on the convention and get that done and taken care of. Then we can worry about this stuff.
Well, I'm excited that you have been in doing this for your county, and of course the county delegates would then have to help you find your replacement. But I appreciate that you like the caucus convention system and that you're supporting it. And what about your family? Tell us a little bit about your family.
Oh, my family. So my wife, a couple of years ago, I said, oh, this is really funny. Someone came and said I should run for state auditor. And she said, oh, you totally need to run for state auditor. And then you need to become our governor and then become our president. She said, you would be the best president. We need you.
I can hear the sarcasm.
Oh, no, she really thinks so. She thinks I should be president. And, there is no chance in Hades. State, I never had any intentions of running statewide. She
loves it. She loves the idea.
Yeah. And she hates politics. But she knows me, and she's fully on board and supportive. She says, what can I do? How can I help? And, you do whatever you need and buy whatever you need and for the campaign, and let's get it done. So she's great.
Your own wife will vote for you. That says a lot.
Oh, very good. Well, everyone, this is Ricky Hatch. Go and check out his website. But even if you're decided on the other person, it's a good idea to go check it out. And that's rickyhatch.com. Go check it out.
I love that you've added the books that you've read, because that is something I'm always interested in about a candidate.
That's an outstanding collection. Bastiat's The Law, The Fourth Turning.
The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
I'd like to see Man, Economy, and State added to that, but that's a side note,
And the Golden Arch.
That's for the super nerds out there. Those crazy libertarians, the autistic people. But anyways, but I like that. I like that you're throwing credit to, these are some of the notions that have built my worldview. So you read them. Got even less miserable, whatever. That's what I said. But you even got that in there, which I think is a good intellectual look of a government that's run amok, that has forgotten about its people.
Oh, look at you.
Pretending
not to know what it is. You going to sing too?
I've never seen the show. I've just kind of did a read through of the script. But anyways, but no, I like that. So rickyhatch.com, go check him out. Ricky, close us out with one last word. Say goodbye, whatever you want to do.
And it was a pleasure talking to
Yes,
you. And thank you for
outstanding.
supporting our convention and being there to meet our delegates. That means a lot.
Thanks, Holly and Jared. What a fun discussion, and what a great project that you have. I'd put the campaign aside. You're the epitome of breaking the cycle, Alexander Tytler's cycle, as explained in the fourth turning. You're the ones that are pushing against that and making sure that our nation survives. And we're really at a critical point. So thank you. I genuinely appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And have a wonderful night, everyone. We'll see you on Friday. We've got
I'll see you at convention.
yes,
Ricky.
we'll see you at convention on Saturday, but we got gout on Friday, and
We'll reach
possibly
out to another candidate on Friday.
yeah, possibly got another candidate. He's on the hook, but we'll see if we can get him to latch. Ricky, thank you again. Have a wonderful night.
Yeah, and thank
you.
you for your
Yeah.
Yes,
For your
thank your
support.
wife for sacrificing you on the altar of freedom.
That's right. You're welcome. She says you're welcome. Thanks.
You have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you.